The growing calls across the nation to defund the police.
To end policing as we know it.
Off the charts violence in New York City. 11 people shot in just 8 hours on
This is
Sunday.
about the police officers who every single day put on that uniform and they run towards danger when we run away from it.
War is the realm of uncertainty. 3/4 of the factors on which action and war is based are wrapped in a fog of greater or lesser uncertainty. Guns up, giddy up.
That's deep. Who said that?
Oh, gosh. Clausewitz. Some guy named Clausewitz. It's the whole fog of war thing. But
well, do you think it'll be applicable today as we dive into the Kyle Rittenhouse situation front to back?
One, yes, I do. Two, I've always wanted to do my Jocko Willink voice, and that was
Willink.
Willink, whatever. That was my Jocko. That was my Jocko voice. So a lot of things fulfilled today. A lot of fantasies.
That was a very Jocko opening.
A lot of bucket list things I just achieved. I just unlocked some new levels today.
Guns up. Giddy up. Kurt Webb in the comments says Mike has a haze going on, and that is absolutely true. If you guys, welcome to the show. Welcome to Failure to Stop. We appreciate you guys listening, watching. If you're watching live on my YouTube channel, we do appreciate it. I do have a little bit of a fog still. Speaking of the fog of war, maybe this is the fog of COVID. This is actually the first day out of quote unquote quarantine that I have had. I am out of the house. COVID kicked my ass. Not gonna lie. It was not fun. Pretty miserable experience all in all. Would not recommend it. Jealous of the people that, they have a few minor symptoms. My son was one of those people, my youngest son anyway, barely had any symptoms, pretty much played Call of Duty the whole time, living his best life, doing 3D prints on stuff at home, just, hanging out like normal. I, on the other hand, continued to descend into the depths of hell, barely hanging on. I had many conversations with Satan and Jesus. There was a battle for my soul going on. It got pretty intense. I wasn't on Tuesday night show, but I did listen to it back. So kudos, Transy, whatever you go by these days. Thanks for taking the helm and telling this crazy story of if you're claustrophobic.
Yeah, I've gotten some comments of people saying, thanks, I now cannot sleep with my head underneath the covers anymore. So kind of proud of myself on that one.
Yeah, so
we missed you, Mike.
If you did not hear the story on Tuesday night's night shift episode of the Nutty Putty Cave rescue, well, take a couple of Xanax if you are afraid of tight spaces, and hey, go listen to it back. You will not be disappointed if you want to be pushed to the edge of your anxiety about tight space rescues and interesting callers, the whole thing. So awesome. Thanks for holding down the fort, man. Appreciate it. And
I felt like the assistant pastor, like when they don't tell you that the pastor's not going to be in
show
church,
up to church and it's like, wait a second, this isn't the regular guy.
damn it. I would have skipped church today had I known this guy was going to be up there.
Too late to walk out. You're already invested.
Because the associate pastor, they always want to like go over and beyond. They always want to like go a little bit harder. And you're just like, come on, man, like just be normal. Just like do a normal thing. So they got to be like all extra and everything. So when I came in on Tuesday, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be extra. I'm just going to get right to the point. If you want to stay, stay. If you don't, get out. But I acknowledge the fact that I'm the assistant pastor, and I'm okay with that. I'm fine with it. I like to be the assistant to the assistant.
Assistant to the regional manager. The show must go on, though, so appreciate that. And if you guys haven't listened to it, go back and hit it up. We are going to cover in detail today the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. We're gonna start at the beginning, though. We're not just covering the trial. Obviously, there's a lot of sources of information. If you're passionate about this kind of thing, you probably are already as much in the know about the facts as we are. We're going to give you our take on these things and open up the dialogue and the conversation. If you have particular questions as you go through that, maybe some things about the legal process, this whole thing that you've had a burning question that you're trying to get answered and you haven't had answered yet, hey, fire it away in the comments. It might get the UPP's attention to hang on to toward the end where we can kind of take questions. And super chats, obviously, we can set aside super chats pretty easily in the YouTube thing, and we can go back and reference those or whatever. So we appreciate any of those as well. But anyway, this is the Failure to Stop show. Give us a few minutes. We got some housekeeping items, things like the shirts we're wearing, failuretostop.com. So if you have not supported the show that way and you want to get some merch, you can. We appreciate that. Speaking of Kyle Rittenhouse and our merch, you're wearing the Lebron, never heard of her shirt, and Lebron decided to open mouth insert giant football. Insert football.
LeBron is a French soccer player. He's a French soccer player. You could tell he's a French soccer player by one. His name is Lebron. And he flops. He flops around. He holds, somebody brushes up against him. It's a whole theatrical event. So it's LeBron James. This has nothing to do with the basketball player LeBron James. This is
LeBron. We wouldn't want to sully his good name.
No. This is LeBron. Totally different.
That is not the basketball player that is known to literally cry on the court and be carried off at the first sign of a muscle cramp. That's not the guy we're talking about.
No, we're talking about LeBron.
That guy that does that, he actually mocked Kyle Rittenhouse on the day that Kyle took the stand. He had moments of breaking down, which many people have indicated is a clear sign of what happens when you're trying to relive a traumatic incident, like what we would call PTSD kind of a thing. Not that he's been diagnosed psychologically with PTSD. That's way above my pay grade or whatever else. But he breaks down on the stand, and the basketball player that loves to comment on everything else in life that he has zero experience with decided to mock him and say there was no tears. He had a couple of lemon heads before he took the stand, went into court. And he got roasted, actually. I think there was when I saw it, there was 17,000 retweets or pings, backs, comments. He got roasted pretty much for it because it amounted to victim shaming, right? Like basically shaming the person who experienced a traumatic event. And I mean, obviously, we're here talking about the trial. Some people are of the persuasion that Kyle is not the victim; he's the aggressor. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. But yeah, he took a beating online, rightfully so. I think.
And I think what the funny quote there that he says that Rosenbaum must have taken a lemon head before going on to the stand. It takes one to know one, right? So if you're a flopper, I mean, taking a lemon head to make that face, that's I'm wondering if that's a play out of old LeBron's playbook. I wonder if that's what he does
when he knows that he's got to fake an injury on the court is pop a couple of lemon heads in. Yeah. I mean, seriously, this guy's making fun of a 17, well now maybe 18-year-old kid crying on the stand
when he got fined,
reliving a terrible situation, and he literally there are photos of him crying and being carried off the court for muscle cramps.
He got
I
fined.
mean, shut up, idiot.
He got fined for flopping. LeBron James has been fined monetarily. He's had to give money for faking it.
For faking.
So,
Yes.
I mean, I don't know.
Well, that's it for you. But if you want to support the show, failuretostop.com, you can get yourself the Lebron. Never heard of a shirt. If
You know what we
like
should have done? We should have done a promo code. Maybe we can do this before it goes on podcast tomorrow, but I think we can use the promo code LeBron.
It comes out today.
Yeah, man, I could probably get that promo code up there. LeBron.
Probably can. What have you guys been saying about the show? We have a few reviews to thank the Wolfpack for. Speaking of the Wolfpack, we got to catch up with our boy in Mobile here after this. Need to hear a story about licking ice cream and catching rapist. This is from German Soldier. One of the best podcasts I've ever listened to. Definitely my number one right now, and it will stay my number one if your next episode talks about how you caught a rapist licking ice cream, Mike. Didn't I tell that story on one of our episodes?
Yeah, because I know that story.
Yeah, I think we told.
We could tell it again. We do it again on Night Shift. We'll tell a whole Mike catching rapist Night Shift.
Yeah, we can talk about catching bad guys on Night Shift. But I did tell that story. I thought in the comments. Let me know, guys, if you've been listening to the show. I did tell that story, right? I thought really early on maybe we told that one.
Yeah.
But anyway, go back and listen to it, German Soldier. And I hope you're not a Nazi. But thank you. Fix It Andy says, my favorite podcast. These two keep you educated and entertained all at once. I love how laid back and down to earth they are. I look forward to each and every episode. Hey, thank you, Fix It Andy. We appreciate you. We hope to keep you entertained and educated, even in this episode today. Bigga McGrizzle. Bigga McGrizzle. Addicting. 5 stars. This show is amazing. Definitely worth the listen. Keep doing what you guys do. Thanks for being a voice of reason in a messed up world. The laughs and stories are just the icing on the cake. Purchased my GoFund Police shirt a few weeks back and looking to order more swag soon. Thanks for doing what you do, guys. Guns up, giddy up.
Oh, man.
Guns up, giddy up. Right back at you.
It makes us feel good. I always love these pat me on the back reviews and messages. I mean, that's why we read them to you guys. We're just letting
why do
you
you
know.
guys just take time every day to pat yourselves on the back?
We reread these just to let you guys know how awesome we are. So if you don't like it, well.
Got to remind you guys. We got to put the Wolfpack in their place. We love you guys, but only second to ourselves.
Leave a bad review. Just make sure you put 5 stars on there.
Yeah, just tear into us. I mean, be super critical. Just put the 5 stars. Although on YouTube, it helps when kind of like a lot of people dislike something. It actually boosts it in the algorithm, right? To where there's like a big discrepancy. So all the haters actually drive up views if people are disliking it. I'm not asking you to dislike the video, but I'm saying like the haters will do a thumbs down, but it actually helps the algorithm because it's all about just engagement and activity. Although I heard YouTube is supposed to be removing the dislike button pretty much because
because of the White House,
because of Brandon and Fauci. That is why they're doing it, because Fauci's documentary, Elijah, I don't know if you can look this up real quick. How many dislikes Fauci's documentary got? It was like 120-some thousand.
What's it on YouTube?
oh God,
Yeah,
I'll do it right now.
Just Google how many dislikes Fauci's documentary had.
I'll
on
go and
YouTube.
dislike
was
it right
something
now.
Ridiculous.
I'll leave my own YouTube feed to go over there just to send that a dislike.
131,000.
131,000 dislikes.
The likes are 8.2 thousand.
8.2 thousand likes to 131,000 dislikes on Fauci's documentary.
Look,
you don't say. And now YouTube's like, oh, this is terrible. But what's funny is creators have the option already to remove like and dislike from their videos. They can do that. But YouTube is talking about removing the dislikes for basically the safety of the creators, like to protect their feelings. They can already protect their own feelings if they want by removing the likes and dislikes. So it's like really what they're protecting is a old man with dementia that is being used as a pup to lead the country, and his medical guy.
I love tuning in when the White House goes live. Like I get the notifications on my phone. It's
amazing.
It's 45 minutes of pure entertainment, and it's like none of it is positive. It's like everybody that's ever Like whoever voted for Biden, they just don't obviously just either they don't
There's
comment
like
or they don't wanna know.
100,000 people that hate it, and then
Nobody
there's
defends
Alyssa
it.
Milano,
Nobody defends him.
pro Biden. I don't know what's going on with there. It's terrible, man.
Well,
but anyway, thank you guys for the reviews. And
Mike, I have a review for you from a question. This is from Andrea Parker. She sent us a message. She says that she has noticed that there is a pig painting behind you. Her husband, Aaron, says that it looks, just like a pig eating a donut. However, she thinks it's a little bit more provocative. It would make her day. She's always thinking outside the box. It would make her day if you could please explain the painting behind you of the pig.
Hold on, let me get it off the wall.
This is for you, Andrea Parker.
This painting, this looks provocative. I'm not sure. So I'm sorry, guys, if you're listening, you're not seeing this. You'll have to watch it back if you want to see what we're talking about. But yeah, this was a fan art that was sent to us way back when I had a podcast called Off the Cuff, and we did like mail time. And man, I can't. And
No, it looks good.
A fan painted this. And I've just kept it in the office ever since because it's pretty freaking awesome.
It's very abstract. I could come up with lots of meanings.
This is not abstract at all.
The
It's
one
very
meaning I could really
straightforward. It's a
come up
pig
for
eating a
is
donut.
that there's a pig that it's going through
It's
some
a pig
stressful
Pigs do eat
times.
buttholes.
It's going through stressful times. It's just seeking something to calm its nerves by eating it. No, I'm just kidding. There's nothing provocative about that. It's a pig.
I don't know.
eating
It's
a
very
fucking
straightforward. It's really actually a boring backstory.
You
But
just let the thing fall down.
I know. I'm sorry. I let the painting fall. I couldn't reach back up there.
By the way, the LeBron James code is up. That is promo code LeBron. LeBron. You have to use the apostrophe. So it's only for you guys that are listening. It's LE apostrophe BRON. LeBron. Promo code LeBron.
Lebron. Do you have to use the apostrophe?
And it's 20%. So it's more than the goo-goo.
Yeah,
so
you
it's
gotta
like
use the
literally.
apostrophe.
All right. Anything you
have
want to
to
get in the
watch
store today, guys, you can get it for 20% off with that Lebron.
No, it's just the LeBron shirts 20% off.
Oh.
But they have to use the promo
that's
code
kind of a
LeBron.
dick move.
Oh, we can go. We can. Yeah, we'll
I
make
mean,
it all
what-
20. We're making it all 20
seriously,
right
guys,
now.
this is why, like,
we'll do it all
see,
20.
if I
Go all
listen,
in.
I just want to point out who loves the Wolfpack more. Tansy is trying to lock you into only one shirt that he wants to sell, and only that one gets the best discount. Whereas I'm like, hey, open it up, man. Let the Wolfpack have its free reign.
Michael.
I love you guys.
Speaking
this is
of
underpaid producer 2.
Tansy is just trying to make this.
That
Tansy's
was
just
my
trying to
fault.
make a quick buck off the Wolfpack, and I'm not having it.
he said, this is underpaid producer.
What's he trying to do?
Tell him, Jimmy.
I'll go ahead and update the code for the family here. That was me who did the 20% off for LeBron.
This is how much Jimmy
do it.
likes Tansy. Is he's going to fall on his sword and take the hit for Tansy's selfishness?
I
This
am
is
pro.
crazy.
I am pro transy.
Today is Black Friday for failuretostop.com. Black Friday. Black Friday sale.
Black Friday. All right, I want to get into the Kyle Rittenhouse stuff, so we're going to spread out our ad reads.
We're not going to go to the Wolfpack.
Oh, we do. Oh, yeah, we gotta
okay.
do the
Yep.
Wolfpack of Mobile updates. Sorry, guys, we have to find out what's going on with Scott down in Mobile. So before we dive in, we'll take a look at him because we don't want him to be forgotten.
Hello, everyone. I'm looking to get out of Alabama. I don't know where to go.
North Carolina.
Think about going to Canada or somewhere.
Son of a bitch.
Make a
big
new
place.
life somewhere. And I don't know.
I love how he puts this owl out on TikTok.
Of course,
Like
the Mobile
that's-
Wolfpack. The Wolfpack keeps up with them.
Dude, anytime
People
you're
know.
being
If you know,
bullied-
you know.
Anytime you're being bullied, you just say Wolf.
I bet he could get a job at the insane asylum that what's her name? Was it Harley?
The Canadian girl, Canadian Harley. That's right.
Canadian Harley.
No, Harley was the Harley is the hippie chick from California.
What was
Oh
her name?
yeah. What is her name?
Oh, I
from,
forgot the Canadian
Jennifer?
girl.
Canada.
Feels like Jennifer to me.
Feels like a Jennifer.
I don't know. Yeah, she's got some weird stories, man.
Ooh, there's
likes
arguments
this
breaking out in the comments.
What is it? What is it? What is
I
it?
don't know. It's on Facebook. There's arguments happening. Yes. I don't know.
Somebody's
I'm not
talking
sure
about-
what's happening. Someone says Ron Guffey's reply is that your last comment shows how ignorant you are on the definition of active shooter. Please stop, as you are embarrassing yourself now. I know Ron, and so Ron can handle himself in the comments. I do not need to come to his defense. He is an intelligent human being who will roast anyone trying to say that Kyle was an active shooter. But
Ron Guffey, are you related to Jake Guffey by chance?
Oh no.
All
right, let's we got a couple more updates from Scott here.
Bulldog 94. He's bad news. He's a scammer. Don't fall for his scams. And leave my friends alone, Bulldog. Everybody beware.
Guys, if anybody by the name of Bulldog is reaching out to you on TikTok, it is a scam. This is why we play this, because this is important. This is like saving your the money that we just saved you from Pitbull's scam, you can spend on a shirt at FailureToStop.com.
20% off with promo code
today.
Lebron.
With promo code Lebron, the apostrophe is critical. All right.
Hello, everyone. Made a business decision, a decorating business. It's going to be called Scott's Decorating Company. If you want my number and you want that house, apartment, whatever decorated in Mobile, Alabama, DM me, ask me for my phone number. Thank you.
Whoa, what qualifies him to be a decorator? Is that just like, is that what he's into? Is that his passion?
Well, I think you can tell from behind him, he's very into minimalism.
Right. Jeez. This guy never ceases to amaze me. He's just
Well, I mean, he had to quit his last job because it was haunted. Obviously, there's ghosts. So I respect the hustle, man. Now he's moved on to his interior decorating business, maybe to be relocated to Canada. I don't know.
Oh, man. Boston Joe says, I bet he has a huge hog.
You're talking about an animal, right? Like eating a donut? Like photographed?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. We need to dive into this because we've got a lot to kind of cover. But we want to spread out our sponsors. So we're going to start at the very beginning. We're actually going to start back at Jacob Blake. We're going to start with where this all started for Kyle Rittenhouse before we even get to the trial. So we're going to do a big overview of what led to the trial, and then we'll talk about like what has been uncovered or we've understood in the trial, what's really going on, because I think that this is a huge, important case. I actually slept on this last year, and I don't know why, other than the fact that I live a real life, and sometimes I don't take dives into cases that I should. But we were talking off air. This is a really important case. I think this case is not just Kyle Rittenhouse on trial. I think it's the Second Amendment and the right to self-defense on trial, the right to engage in society on levels. I think that there's a lot going on here that impacts
trial
us as
by
a society.
media.
Yeah, this is a very important. What is going on in front of us right now is very, very important. Almost as important as Transy making his fourth child on a ghost bed.
Well, the defense is resting after yesterday's testimonies. The deliberations and the closing statements will start on Monday. I can only hope that everybody is resting on a ghost bed. This is Veterans Day weekend, so we got a new promo code out, which is 33% off of everything in the store. That's the pillows, the pillowcases, sheets. So if you're not bougie enough to get a ghost bed, the full bed, you can still get the cooling pillows. You can still get the sheets and the pillowcases. That promo code is going to be Drinking Bros 33. But we absolutely love Ghost Bed. The reason being is because they were our first sponsor, right? They're a company sponsor, corporate sponsor to Drinking Bros, the network. However, they kind of moved over to us as well. We do fall under the Drinking Bros umbrella. However, Mike and I had never done a show together. Mike and I didn't even know each other. So they were taking a huge gamble coming on to Failure Stop, and we couldn't thank them enough. Every mattress has a 20-year warranty. You can try them out for 101 nights, not 98, not 99, but 101, baby. And if you don't like it, you can send it back. No hard feelings, but you won't. One of our favorite parts about Ghost Bed is that each mattress has cooling technology in it so that if you get hot at night, like we do here in North Carolina in the summers, you can stay cool. Stay hard, while staying cool, baby. GhostBed also offers bundles so that you can get everything you need. You don't even have to really think about it. Just choose from their 4 mattresses. Pick your bundles, whether you just need a mattress and a frame or you want it all. I want it all. I want it all. And I want it now. Thanks, Mike, for leaving me hanging on that one.
How you like that?
their
I
cooling
did that on
pillows and their
purpose
sheets.
because of what you normally do to me, and you are refusing to admit that I get USA right. So I'm not singing your song.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see if we can do it today. But you can get the best bang for your buck, and all these beds are made in the good old USA. USA. Yeah. See, this is why I leave you out of these things, because you still can't get it right. One thing to practice. Right now, GhostBed is offering a flash sale, 40% off of GhostBed bundles, where you can get the mattress and the adjustable base by using that promo code Drinking Bros at ghostbed.com/Drinking Bros. Or this week only 30% off of everything in the store. If you use, it's 33% off everything. I'm sorry, 33% off. Just use that promo code Drinking Bros 33, ghostbed.com/Drinking Bros.
Giddy up. Guns up, giddy up. Someone mentioned in the comments, we're going to dive into what started this all. But Elijah, if you want to scroll back up, there was a super chat about Eddie Gallagher. Nick Wiltfong did a super chat. Appreciate it. You guys were wrong about Eddie Gallagher. He was found not guilty, not pardoned, like you said in your Breonna Taylor episode. Don't be like media. All right, Nick. Cool. I don't remember the context of bringing Eddie Gallagher up, honestly, when we were talking about Breonna Taylor. But yeah,
I like how people listen to this.
We stand corrected. We are. Don't confuse us, by the way, with the media. We have a podcast where we give our perspective on things.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm not. We're not trying to be the media. I don't know what that means. Don't be like media. We have no skin in that game with Eddie Gallagher. We were talking about Breonna Taylor, so I don't even remember how it came up. But if you have the correct information there, awesome. Then we stand corrected if we said the wrong thing, and now your voice has been heard, sir.
I think it's funny though. It's like, there's hundreds of hours of you and I chatting, right? And this is all coming from our perspective on things that we see from the same sofa and the same couch that you were sitting on, or the same driver's seat in the car that you're sitting on. So we pull all this information, but we look at these through the perspective of police officers, because that's what we were, and that's how we have to look at things. But I think it's funny how people take subtle sentences and then they hang on them for weeks and weeks as if it was a personal attack on you. Listen, we're not trying to personally attack anybody. We're just two dudes talking on microphones. We do a lot of research. However, there's no personal attacks here. So when you hear something and you let it eat at your soul for weeks on end, it's not healthy. Send a private message and we'll talk to you. We can talk it out. But
you'll talk it out.
Yeah, I will.
I
Don't
won't.
sit
I'm
on
an
those
asshole.
things and just, it's so
Amber
crazy to me.
Amber knows that. What is this, Elijah? What do you got going on? You got an update from Mobile?
We've got the most recent TikTok.
All right, we'll hit this real quick, then we got to get into it.
It has to happen.
It has to happen, according to the producer.
This is so you kidnap us. The kidnaps kids and women. I will come for you.
Oh, shit.
You will not be safe. I will save them. And you will be punished by the law of the United States.
I guess he's staying here instead of in Canada.
The VP of the Wolfpack
Oh, the Wolfpack.
will save every innocent people.
Dude, this guy is, you know how I see this playing out?
The Wolfpack is busy down there.
Do you know how I see this playing out is an EMP goes off tomorrow. The world is shut down. It's fucking chaos. It's crazy, but everybody rallies around one dude, the savior of all humanity, and it is this guy right here.
Scott
It's
Rogers.
the leader of the Wolfpack, Scott Rogers. And we're all making fun of him now. We're all getting a good laugh in. But this dude holds the key to freedom's destiny.
Whatever's going on with him genetically, he's impervious to nuclear warfare.
Yes.
We know that. All right, so that's our Wolfpack update. Appreciate that being inserted. We need to get into this. We're 30 minutes into the show. Let's do it. the whole Kyle Rittenhouse situation really begins with a shooting in Kenosha of Jacob Blake. And I don't want to, we're not going to dive into the Jacob Blake shooting per se. But to recap, if you were not aware of this, because somebody's like, well, this was all a George Floyd thing. Well, no, it wasn't. The George Floyd riots just... We had a sequence of things in 2020 that happened. The Ahmaud Arbery case down in Georgia, which that trial is actually going on right now as well. Found that out as I was kind of digging around with Kyle Rittenhouse. I'm like, oh, shoot, I didn't even know the Ahmaud Arbery trial was happening. So that wasn't really a police situation at all anyway, right? So that it's not really our normal purview of things that we'll break down, but that happens. Then that led to the next event. Well, it didn't lead to it, but related as far as we look through the timeline. Then the George Floyd situation happens. If you have not heard us break down Derek Chauvin trial and the whole George Floyd situation, I think it was episode 2 or 3, Tansy, that we did that. If you want to go back, so that happened. That led to a ton of protests, riots, looting, violence, all sorts of things that were negative in the wake of the George Floyd death. Then this happened in Kenosha, where Jacob Blake, the officers were called to a domestic violence situation. Jacob Blake has a knife. He won't put the knife down. He tries to dive into a vehicle where his kids are at. An officer grabs him and fires, X number of rounds, hits him. He doesn't die. I believe it left him paralyzed, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong on that. But he doesn't die, and there's a settlement that happens, whatever. We're not talking about the Jacob Blake case, even though the officer was not charged in that case, rightfully so, because the officer did nothing wrong. And violence breaks out. If you're watching, you'll see a bunch of B-roll footage right now that the UPP will be playing. It's just kind of footage of things that were happening in Kenosha in the wake of the Jacob Blake shooting immediately, because that's just the culture of 2020. The summer of 2020 was anytime the police do anything that you don't like, you just start burning people's businesses. You just take to the streets, you burn stuff, you steal stuff, you act a fool, you perpetrate violence on other random people in the street because, hey, that's the right thing to do if you feel the cops are unjustified in doing their job that you have no clue or understanding about anyway, legally or practically. What you do is you just burn stuff and you act like idiots. And that's the solution. What
we saw in that summer was kind of an accumulation. This is all product of giving every single child a trophy. Here you had a whole bunch of white kids who thought they were oppressed by their parents, who have been given everything that they want. They've had really nothing to fight for in this world. They've got iPhones and iPads, a great economy, a ward that they could volunteer to go to or not go to, free college, all sorts of things happening. But they had nothing to really be mad at and nothing to fight for. And so in the summer of 2020, what you had is a bunch of overprivileged people out on the streets, banging on things, beating on things, similar to the way my 6-year-old or my 4-year-old will act when they don't get their way. Case in point, my 4-year-old broke down in a horrific tantrum on where he received a spanking yesterday, all because we opted and told him we were not going to name our future daughter Skull Crusher. And he threw a tantrum, and he took a fork and dropped it on the floor. He picked a fork up and he looked me in the eyes and he's like, "Meh." And it was just a fork, and that's not that big of a deal. But the president has to be set right choice of, now. That was him in an act of defiance, and I don't do that. Direct defiance is not okay in my household. It's just lying and direct disobedience are two things that I don't stand for, and you will get spanked for those. Like the two things in my house that you will get a hand on the hiney for. And I'm not talking about a Rosenbaum hand on the hiney either. I'm talking about a real man spanking to a deserving child. But this was, and if you watch these videos play back, especially in Kenosha, I mean, the majority of these kids are like white kids that all have like some kind of, issue or.
Oh, look, they punched that dude in the face. They beat a man who is defending not trashing a place of business. That's nice of them. Nothing says the cops are corrupt like taking to the street and beating random innocent people. That'll show them. That really accomplishes a lot. It's crazy. By the way, I think you should name your daughter Skull Crusher.
I just can't believe how upset he was. But I mean, he was so tired yesterday. He was burned out from the day. They had a lot going on yesterday, and I think it was just an accumulation of tiredness.
So in Kenosha, they just dumped a bunch of soy in the water, and I don't know what happened. Everybody lost their mind, and they take to the streets, and what happens is, at that point, Kyle, who is from Antioch, Illinois, which some people don't understand. People are so lazy when it comes to the media, because the media immediately, in the Kyle Rittenhouse situation, immediately talks about how he wasn't even from Kenosha, that he had no business being there, right? That this idea that Kyle would be in Kenosha is just him begging for a problem. And we'll talk about that angle in a little bit here, but I want to put this in perspective. Antioch, Illinois is less than a 30-minute drive from Kenosha. Others involved, Joseph Rosenbaum, Anthony Huber, for example, both also lived more than 30 minutes from Kenosha, and they were there. A lot of times, as we saw going all the way back to Ferguson, people were being bussed in from hours away to protest and loot and riot and burn and pillage and act like little children throwing a fork on the floor, right? This is what happens. So being not from somewhere when there's some big social event happening is not uncommon, but this is not like weird, right? Like if Kenosha is sort of like your quote unquote city, if that's like the main hub of where sort of like your city life is, it's not weird.
Yeah, when people ask me,
people do commutes for 45 minutes or an hour to work all the time because that's where the hub of life is. Like, I don't live in Detroit proper. I'm like 10 minutes from downtown, 12 minutes from downtown. But if they're like, it wouldn't be weird for me to be downtown, even though I'm not there. I don't live there. Same thing with Kenosha. It's not weird in a suburban type setting to drive 25 minutes to something. It's not weird.
When I'm out doing a tasting in Florida for my rum distillery and somebody say, well, where's your rum distillery located? I say just outside Raleigh, because Raleigh's 30 minutes from here and everybody knows what Raleigh is. So, and I spend a lot of my time in Raleigh. That's not crazy, right? We do that stuff. People do that all the time. Like if you live in Ramona, California, you're probably more likely to say, I live, where do you live? Oh, I'm from like San Diego area. Like that's what you would say. Because that's where that's the easiest point of context there.
Right. Absolutely. You have sort of like your center.
So that's media fumble number one.
Someone brought up Kyle's dad lives there. Yeah, he's got grandparents that are from the Kenosha area. So he's connected to the community in some sense. As much as Rosenbaum or Huber or Grosskreutz, I'm not sure how to say his last name, but as much connection as they have, as much connection as no one's questioning where all the rioters came from. So why are we questioning where Kyle came from? So I just want to clear that because I don't think that it's relevant to deciding about the validity of the use of force or what he's actually on trial for. It is absolutely, in my opinion, I don't know what you think, Tansy, I think it's completely irrelevant that Kyle drove 25 minutes from his house to be there in that moment or in that situation. Yeah. I think the distance is nothing in the big scheme of things. What do you think?
I think it's irrelevant in this case because 20 minutes or 30 minutes is it's reasonable to go and stand up for something, right? So if there's nothing ever going to happen in Clayton, but if something happens into Raleigh, I'm probably going to go to Raleigh to be a part of it if I believe in that ideology, or if I believe in what's going on, or if I really want to help, because there's nothing ever going to happen in my town. So Raleigh would be the closest town. I don't think that's unreasonable for people to travel to the biggest town or the biggest city to do anything. If you're going to go to a mall, you're not going to go to the mall in Clayton, North Carolina. You're going to go to the mall in Raleigh, North Carolina. So this guy, if he's going to go and protect looters and rioters and try to be a good citizen, he's going to have to go 20, 30 minutes away. But it is relevant when you were talking about a narrative that the media was trying to portray at this time, because I really feel like this whole thing was to sway an election. That's my personal belief on that. I think that all of this made big national news because
the media capitalizing on situations.
Call me crazy.
To sway political decisions. Get out of here.
Call me a left-wing nut.
The media is
what I think
is fair. It is unbiased, my friend. Right?
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, how am I wrong on that?
You're not, because these are all reasonable things. And the funny thing is that, and I've said this from the beginning, man, perception is not reality. And I can't say it enough. And I really think that the downfall of society right now has a lot to do with perception. We are so ready to jump on somebody and to cancel them before we know any of the facts.
My perception up until this week, when I took a deep dive on this case, my perception was that he was like hours away.
Yeah,
that's how the media delivered the information to me.
Right,
basically,
we have to
that's the
perception
that was being beat into my head, was that he had no reason to be there at all. But ask yourself the question: what reason did anybody have to be there in the streets, setting fire to things,
right?
Smashing businesses. The car dealership that Kyle was at. We're about ready to the repair shop. There was like a guy that has used car lots, and he has like a service shop. It was like several places in a row on this street, near the courthouse, near the police department. And that guy in 2 days had already suffered $1.4 million in damage to his property. And now he says he didn't ask Kyle to be there, and that's fine. That's irrelevant, right? Everybody's just pouring out into the street. So why did anybody need to be there? Why did anybody need to be rioting in the street? So I think the fact that question's not being asked, but why was Kyle individually there? Like he went to stir up a problem? Because the media was already spinning up a narrative that the facts be damned. It doesn't matter. They want to deliver a perception, and they want you to swallow it like the good little boys and girls. Take your medicine, take your media medicine, and you will like it. It's for your own safety. It's for your own good. You do it because we know what's best for you, and the media wants to deliver this to you. And from the very beginning, even just the fact that he wasn't from there, I don't know, put a spin on this that was biased to me.
This is all resistance like a 3 or 4 year old. And I say this all the time, but this is all just petulant children wanting to create a narrative. I'll give you another example because I have 3 kids and 1 on the way, almost 4 kids. My child, can I have some Halloween candy? Not right now, but maybe after such and such, you can have some. Well, fast forward an hour, 2 hours. Can I have some Halloween candy? No, not right now. But you said I could have some Halloween candy. Well, I said later, well, you lied because you said this. No, I didn't lie. I just said you can't have any candy right now. Well, no, but you said, and now you have this like whole thing where this child is trying to create this super crazy narrative to make you tired, to make you just be like, you know what? Fuck it. Just go get some candy and shut the fuck up. That's what's happening right now. There is a narrative that wants to be pushed. They want their candy and they want it now, and they're not going to listen to you, and they're going to try to distort your words and make you look like a liar or bring other things that are irrelevant into the case, into the scenario to just to beat you down and make you tired and just be like, you know what? Fuck it. He's guilty. Put him in jail just to get everybody to shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So why was Kyle there? Well, let's let Kyle say it in his own words, okay? That way we don't have to put words in his mouth. We don't even have to wonder why he was there. The question you have to ask yourself is, if people can want to be there for bad reasons, can people also want to be there for good reasons? Okay? So let's listen to Kyle, why he was there.
Injured, and Our job is to protect this business, and part of my job is to also help people. If there's somebody hurt, I'm running into harm's way. That's why I have my rifle, because I need to protect myself, obviously. But I also have my med kit. We're protecting from the citizens, and I just got pepper sprayed by a person in the crowd.
So you had non-lethal, but you didn't respond.
We don't have non-lethal.
So you guys are full on ready to defend the property?
Yes, we are. Now, if I can ask, can you guys step back? Medical, EMS.
So the end of that clip, he's actually going to render aid to one of the rioters, basically, people who are there. So he says he's there to render aid. What we learned in the trial, just to kind of read this back into the time, is that Rittenhouse had EMT stuff. He was a cadet with like a volunteer fire department or whatever. So he has like, I don't know if it's aspirations to be in the first responder world, but he has some experience in that as a teenager, right? Like there's police explorer programs. This fire department had like a cadet program, so he had some EMT training, that kind of stuff. He says in one part of this, which I don't have this part. I watched so many clips this week, but he says that there was no medical staff showing up. The police had stopped Rittenhouse and talked to him. He's standing there with his rifle slung. It is going to be important to note that he is 17 at this time. When we talk about the charges he faces, we're going to talk about his age and the fact that he has a firearm or whatever. But the police did stop and talk to him and a group of others who are armed. And they're standing there and they said, listen, for where this area is, you need to move out of this spot or you will be arrested. So move out of this area. The police were clearing an area, and Rittenhouse and others who were there for this, stated purpose of helping people who were injured, protecting property, that kind of a thing, that they were told that they had to move out of that area. That's when that moment happened with Kyle. He had already been moved on by the police, so he was compliant with the police. The police were aware that there were people with firearms out there, open carrying these firearms. Obviously, even if it was a concern of theirs, it was going to be the bottom of the barrel concern because of the fact that they were getting called from thing to thing to thing for these people destroying property and lighting fires. And he said basically that now they had created this red zone where EMS and first responders were not going in. So if anybody was hurt, it was going to be up to people to take care of themselves. Other citizens would have to help take care of the medical needs of other citizens. And so this sets the stage, is you have Kyle and others who say, we want, as much as people want to be here destroying, we want to be here protecting. That this community is worth protecting, and we're not going to let people just randomly destroy places in as much as our power. And if people need medical help, we are prepared to do that.
So some people are asking, I have a question, is some people say, well, why was he there? Why did he feel like he needed to be there to render that aid? Where is that his responsibility? We're talking about idealistic teenagers. My question would be is, why does the same 16, 15, 17-year-old teenagers feel the need that they need to go rip down a statue or throw Molotov cocktails through a glass window? It's because these kids are idealistic. So this kid's, what his ideals are is that, I'm here to help and to be somebody because I want to be a first responder and I want to be, on the front lines helping people. I want to be a soldier, whatever it is. That's what he wants to be. Some of these other kids, they want to be, social justice warriors, and they want to storm the Enterprise and take down the man and throw Molotov cocktails and things. So why is it okay for one to be idealistic as a teenager and the other one is not allowed to be idealistic?
Yes.
Towards the opposite.
Yeah,
ideas.
we have to allow the inverse of the conversation, because if people are like, well, that's not a really great reason for Kyle to be there. He needed to mind his own business. Right, but do the inverse. So then we shouldn't have protests in response to government action, like police officers, like in the response to Jacob Blake. We shouldn't allow that, right? Or we allow the inverse. We have to ask the opposite question, which is, why was everyone else there then? And if we're okay with them being there, then we have to be okay with Kyle being there for his own reasons. Like, we have to, it's either all got to be okay or it all's got to be called into question. I am of the persuasion that the whole situation, I would say this is it's unwise, right? I can question the wisdom of that, right? I can appreciate the motivation, the desire, right? To help, to stand up for something. And in a lot of ways in life, if you don't have people who are willing to risk themselves to do good things for their community, then where are we headed as a society? So I can relate to that in terms of a support, right? I can say kudos to Kyle Rittenhouse for being the kind of person who says, who sees something happening, unfolding in a place that he cares about and is connected to, and says, I'm not going to let that happen. I don't want people getting hurt. And you're like, well, what business is it of his? You can see, we rolled some B-roll footage of the 2 days previous to Kyle being there. Innocent people were being bashed in the face and attacked on the street. And Kyle sees this just like everybody else does and says, I'm not having it. I want to do something about that. And I have nothing but respect for that impulse of someone who says, I see something being destroyed. I don't want it to be destroyed. I want to protect it. At the same time, you have to think about wisdom of decisions, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like this youthful exuberance on both sides, one for improper motivation and one for proper motivation, but that doesn't make it any less and any more wise to put yourselves in these situations, right? Everybody can what if themselves to death. Well, if Kyle wouldn't have gone there, nobody would have died. We don't know that. Somebody else could have killed them. Kyle wasn't the only person there with a firearm. Okay, there was lots of people with firearms. In fact, one of the people who was shot by Kyle also had a gun that he was carrying around. So stop with the this or that or what ifs, and let's just understand what really actually happened, okay, and what the stated motivations are. Because what we're getting at is, what is he actually being charged with, and should that stand? What is it from a legal perspective, especially our experience as cops? What color does that fill in for us here as we draw the outline? So that's why Kyle's there. This is what happens. But if we're going to question why Kyle was there, because in the trial, the prosecution brings up Kyle's TikTok and the fact that he's holding guns and talking about, his past, like, he wants to get whores. Like, it's all, obviously, if anybody takes social media and rips it out of context, it can look bad for just about anybody. But they were pulling apart Kyle's, when he was on the stand, his TikTok account from the previous year when he was 16, and nitpicking it as a character problem. So if that's allowed, then I think it's also allowed that we look at, well, there was 3 people shot, 2 deceased and 1 alive. Joseph Rosenbaum, Anthony Huber, they were shot and they were killed. And then there was Gage, how do you say his last name? Gruskrutz? Gruskrutz. I don't know. I don't know how to say it. Gage
if you say with a German accent, then you can't be wrong.
Gruskrutz. Yep. Oh my.
Ja.
He was carrying a firearm as well that evening. 3 of them are shot, 2 of them die. Why were they there? If we're going to criticize why Kyle was there, then we need to, and we're going to criticize the kind of person Kyle was. Well, then we need to do that to the other people then.
Yeah. Why would we be able to bring up?
Why was Joseph Rosenbaum there? Why was this middle-aged dude out there?
And what was his character? Such a big deal.
If Kyle's character on his TikTok from when he was 16 plays into his motivations and his intent, well, what was Rosenbaum's intent for being there? Is he just this model citizen out there to protest police injustice, or is he just your average dirtbag out there for the opportunity? I don't know. Tell us what you found out about Joseph Rosenbaum.
Well, if there was anybody that needed to die that day, I believe in my heart of hearts that it was probably Rosenbaum. He was probably the one that deserved it the most. I can't imagine anybody in that crowd having a worse record than he does. But he has several felonies that he was convicted for. February 2002, sexual indecency to a minor, intentionally knowing or committing the act while a minor under the 15 years of age, he was masturbating in front of him. That was that case. 27th day of March 2002, intentionally knowing engaging in an act of sexual intercourse with a second victim, a minor under the age of 15 years, by penetrating the victim's anus with his penis. Here's another one. A person under the age of 18 sharing photographs of new women to include their genitals. Here's another one. A minor under 15 years of age, again, masturbating in front of them. Here's another one. A third victim penetrating the third victim's anus with his penis. This person was also under the age of 15. Another one, inserting his penis into the victim's mouth under the age of 15. Oh, by the way, at the time of this incident, Rosenbaum was about 26 years old. So imagine a 26-year-old, you've got a daughter under the age of 15, or in this case, a son under the age of 15 years old, and you've got a 26-year-old putting his dick into that child's mouth. Pretty disgusting. Here's another account, touching a victim's penis with his hand. That's a fourth victim touching his penis again with his hand. A fifth victim, fingering another victim, male. That's the fifth victim as well. So this guy is a child molester. He is a predator, if you will.
Yeah, the reason, and you're like, normally it doesn't matter, right? You have to look at the situation itself. But turnabout is fair play. If people are going to criticize, well, why was Kyle there? And his motivations, well, then if you're going to do that, then you have to be willing to ask yourself the question for everyone else involved. And that's why we bring this up. Because it's not necessarily, it's not like a logical following that because Rosenbaum had criminal past, he deserved to be shot that night. But that's not what happened. Okay? It wasn't that Rosenbaum was randomly picked out of a crowd and shot by someone that night, and then his criminal past is completely irrelevant to the situation. No, it actually plays into the situation. Look at Rosenbaum that night. Here is what Rosenbaum is spending his time doing as he approaches Kyle, not the other way around. You'll see what happens here.
Everything you got, shoot me. Shoot me.
Shoot me. Turns out Rosenbaum's a prophet, by the way.
So let's talk about provocation, because
this sets a huge stage. The fact that Rosenbaum is doing that in his presence and toward Kyle is a huge thing, because it is setting the stage for provocation. And all of the totality of the circumstances. That's a huge term you guys need to understand from a cop perspective. The totality of the circumstances. And it starts with Rosenbaum provoking people who are present there to protect life and property.
Which is important to know, because the media is trying to spin it, and the ADAs are trying to say that the provocation was caused by Rittenhouse, which we're going to play out this whole case here, and you're going to see that, more likely than not, and the evidence is pretty much insurmountable at this point, that Rosenbaum was in fact the provoker in this case. Now, if provoking somebody is like, there's a couple of ways that you can provoke somebody. So let's say that that could be criminal, right? So if I'm standing in front of my producer here, Jimmy, and I start to talk about his wife, and I start to talk about his mother in a negative way that elicits him to hit me, where I'm like up in his face, and I'm like, your mother's a fucking whore. I finger blasted your wife last night, whatever. And he hits me. I don't get to just pull out a gun and fucking smoke him, because I provoked it. Now, he was the aggressor, but I was the provoker. And so that all plays into the law. Now, there's another way that this law can be, another way of provoking, which I think is more the Rosenbaum thing, is where if you look at somebody and you think about an old Western film where he's like, go ahead, draw your pistol. Go ahead. You better draw it. You better draw your pistol, or I'm going to shoot you. Draw your pistol right now. And then the guy goes to reach for his pistol, but the other guy knows he's faster, and he slings it out and shoots the innocent, farmer, banker, whatever it is that, shouldn't have been carried a side piece in the Western film at all. That again is, you cannot do that. You cannot provoke somebody into self-defense. So in this case, Rittenhouse did none of those things, But we see that Rosenbaum did one of these things where he's kind of like trying to provoke and elicit somebody to shoot him.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's clear as day. I mean, it's literally on video. Then we have, and we're going to get into the actual shootings themselves. But again, if we're going to set the stage and talk about why was Kyle there and what kind of person is Kyle, well, then we also have to do that with everyone else involved. Anthony Huber, he was also killed. He is the one that had a skateboard in his hand, and we'll see the video in a little bit. But he was a serial domestic abuser. Now, you would never get that from the girl that he was there with, talking about a glowing review of his life, but his criminal record makes it abundantly clear that he had a serial problem with violence. And so, again, these guys are being made out. The prosecution is trying to say, essentially, that these guys were trying to stop Kyle from his aggressive behavior with a firearm. We see that the complete opposite with Rosenbaum, and we also see the complete opposite when we look at all the indicators as well with Huber. The interesting thing about the surviving guy, Gage, who, by the way, became, even though he was a prosecution witness, became a slam dunk for the defense. We'll get to that in the trial portion of this breakdown. He also has a criminal history. Drunk with a firearm. In Wisconsin, it's called going in the presence of alcohol or something weird. Like, Wisconsin's got some weird names for its crimes. But after this incident, he actually had a drunk driving charge that was dropped by the prosecution shortly before the beginning of this trial. Strange. A couple other interesting points is that Rosenbaum was removed from the criminal registry, the sexual registry.
Yeah.
As well, because he's dead. So, but they tried to wipe him off because, well, he's deceased. But really, is this all just a coincidence, or is that standard procedure that someone is wiped away in the middle of a trial? I don't know, man. It's a little bit weird, but nevertheless, I'm not a big believer in coincidence, and it is not a coincidence that what we have here are literally two sides with two entirely different motivations showing up to the same place in the wake of the same event.
It's almost like as if there was a battle between good and evil, as if there was a kid who was a good kid. And we're going to see later in this trial how good of a human being Kyle actually is. He's like really idealistically, like, this guy is in great. He wants to be a first responder. He wants to save people. He does not want to be a killer. He wants to be a medic. He wants to be a protector. So he is kind of the essence of good in this case. And then you have three guys who are exactly the opposite, that are just bad human beings. Anthony Huber in Kenosha, he was charged with a repeater as a domestic abuser. Yes. So he's a repeated domestic abuser and that was in 2018 and 2012. Second degree recklessly endangering safety. He got a felony for that. Use of a dangerous weapon during domestic abuse. He received another felony for domestic abuse with a weapon. And then he also, some of those charges, there was multiple charges. Some of those were dropped, but that's how we see it. If you get multiple charges for the same incident, they're going to drop some just to uphold the others. It's all about making plea deals. But this guy has a history of violence, and not just any type of violence. We're talking like violence against women. So you've got a dude that's violence against children, which is evil, and then violence against women, which is evil. And this isn't like a normal violence against women, like you had a minor domestic dispute and then the cops were called and, you know, all the charges were dropped in court. No, these are like felony charges.
Yes. So that's who we're talking about here. Somebody asked a question that I think is, maybe we can talk about this real quick. What's the point of having cops if I can run around with an AR, quote unquote, protecting whatever I want? Well, first of all, what's interesting is that you put protecting in quotes, right? Which shows the bias. We're walking you through the facts of this case. We're going to have our opinions, and we're making our opinions known as we go. So we're not hiding our opinions. There's no need to hide yours either. You don't have to put anything in quotes. You can just say that you already have a bias and your mind is unwilling to be changed by this stuff. But, I mean, what's the point of citizens being able to have the right to free assembly, or to peaceably protest, or to volunteer their time to go into a situation that cops are overwhelmed by? Like, why not? Why can't citizens be able to protect things? They do it all the time. They protect their homes with firearms. They protect their places of business with firearms. People choosing to do that in times of need in society. I mean, why not? I mean, it's America. They have the right to do it. I mean, you know, the police have a particular oath and a particular function in society. Doesn't mean that it's exhaustive or that it eliminates. It's not an either or proposition. Oh, because we have cops, citizens shouldn't do good things. That's a weird dichotomy that doesn't. It's a false dichotomy. Having cops doesn't negate citizens' abilities or freedoms.
I think we also have to remember that this is extenuating circumstances. This isn't just like he's walking around protecting houses every day, patrolling neighborhoods with a firearm. Right. I mean, this was the fog of war. I mean, there's chaos, there's anarchy, there are things going on. There are innocent people who are suffering at the hands of an unruly mob, and the cops were overwhelmed. 911 operators were overwhelmed that night. There needed to be other people on the ground to help out. And I'm sure prior to this shooting that some of the people that were had their eyes flushed by Rittenhouse when they were pepper sprayed, I'm sure they appreciated him being there. I'm sure that people appreciated lots of people that were out there to help out on both sides. So again, extenuating circumstances. It's not like this guy's just out.
Matthew Wingett in the comments says, so we judge someone by their clothing? I don't see this being done elsewhere, so why now? Matthew, I'm not sure what clothing you're talking about me judging. Did I say something about somebody's clothing? I'm not sure what you're talking about, dude. I'm not.
But yeah, I mean, I do judge people
anybody on their clothing.
I will judge you by your clothing. If you're getting out of prison after shooting a bunch of kids in a high school, and you get out on bond and you immediately put on a blue baseball cap with blue sneakers and you have a blue gang flag hanging out of your back pocket, I'm probably going to go ahead and judge you as a gang member and also a piece of shit. So if you're walking around with a swastika just right there on your t-shirt, probably going to judge you as a huge piece of shit. And then I find out that you're actually Hindu and it's the swastika and then I feel bad. But no, I mean, like, honestly, right off the bat, if I see that, I'm probably going to be like, oh, well, that dude's a Nazi and he's probably a piece of shit. So.
I'm not fat. I'm big bone. Somebody said that. I don't know where that came from. All right, yeah, there's a lot of comment things happening, so I'm not going to be able to keep up.
If Boston Joe gets on an airplane wearing pajama pants.
Chef Lewis has said this like 87 times, which probably needs to be muted at this point for repeating himself so many times. Didn't Kyle beat a woman? I don't know what you're talking about. If that came up, then it did not hit
national news.
I'll give him one more chance.
I don't know what you're talking about. Kyle beating a woman. Anthony Huber definitely beat women. He was a convicted serial domestic abuser. So Anthony Huber did. That's established fact. Kyle beating a woman, I don't know about that. All of the trial summary videos I have watched, all of the testimony videos I have watched, I could have missed it. I did not see anything coming up about Kyle beating a woman. If it exists, I'll have to look into it, and then we'd have to figure out what relevance that has to this. The reason we talked about the 3 people who were shot and their past is because everyone's doing it to Kyle. So that's what I'm saying. Turnabout is fair play. If we're going to question why was Kyle there and what kind of person is Kyle, we have to be willing to do the same thing with everyone else involved. And so that we're just being fair by explaining both motivations.
I found it, Mike, and Snobe says that it's unsustained. A video of a fight in Kenosha, Wisconsin, supposedly shows a 17-year-old accused of killing 2 people at a protest, assaulting a woman. So there was a fight that broke out in in the riots, and somebody has said that this looks like Kyle Rittenhouse that is actively fighting a girl and punching her in the back of the head. Snopes says that this is unproven.
If
there was
Snopes says it, which is run by some pretty interesting folks, then
there was another article that says that this was disproven, but then the article cuts off, and I'm not able to read it, which I think is also
there was a few photos of like dark photos or things, and people that looks like Kyle. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. There again, Kyle was not the only person there doing what Kyle was doing. So it's not like Kyle was all alone in this. There were others who were armed, who had medical supplies, who were helping people injured from these riots, and involving themselves in the situation as a whole. So, but as much right as rioters had to be there, so do free citizens who want to do different things there and help people and protect life and property. So that's what I think is really, really important, is at the foundational understanding of this circumstance and what led up to it. You cannot have a society where you think gathering and protesting is okay, where counter-protesting is not okay.
Right.
You just can't. You can't be a consistent person with that. And that's the groundwork here. Now, before we turn the corner, we'll actually look at the shootings themselves. So the first one that happens is going to involve Rosenbaum. So as soon as the UP,
now, Mike, so other than this initial thing with Rosenbaum yelling, "Shoot me, shoot me," was Kyle Rittenhouse present for that, or is that just the group of people he was with that were present for that?
No, I believe he's in that crowd.
He's in that crowd, but that wasn't directly spoken to Rittenhouse.
No, I believe
Rosenbaum,
it was. I believe it was, but
okay.
This is that was more for me. This is what Rosenbaum is doing, is he's looking at people there.
Right.
And I believe Kyle is in that shot.
Okay.
If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. I don't think it changes.
I heard that come up in the trial, and there was some back and forth about whether that was said directly to Rittenhouse or if it was directed to into the crowd that he was with. And again, this is all because of law. Remember, like, we're doing this based on
Rittenhouse or Rosenbaum is directly looking at someone, and Kyle is in that crowd.
Which this trial is great. For those of you who have not watched the trial, this is because perception is not reality. We're talking about what our perception is, but what our perception is not quite reality. But if you watch the trial, it's really, really, really fascinating to see exactly what we're talking about as how the law plays out.
If you want a summary of every single day of the trial, there is a website called Legal Insurrection, and they are covering the trial, daily summary videos, daily breakdowns. I would highly recommend you do that. So yeah, Legal Insurrection is a great source. So Bryce said that he testified he was not. So if Kyle testified that he was not the intended audience of Rosenbaum's stuff, then that's something that I did not catch. But I'll trust you, Bryce, on this, and so I think I don't have any reason why Bryce would be leading us astray here. Kyle testified that he was not there when Rosenbaum was saying that, but it shows Rosenbaum's state of mind and his attitude and approach to those doing what Kyle was doing.
Yeah. That piece of evidence when it comes to the trial, and the judge, I think, does a great job. We're going to talk about the judge here shortly. But the judge does a great way of actually making sure that we're talking about the law and as it pertains to the Constitution and how things go, and not allowing the ADAs to bring in speculation or what people were thinking or what they weren't thinking. And I think that's going to be important going forward. But before we cross the lines and we go into the first shooting, we play the first video. Do you want me to do this ad read really fast?
Let's get through the actual shootings.
Okay.
And then we'll do the ad read, because I gotta take a potty break too as well before we dive into the actual trial itself. And the charges. So where we're at, guys, if you're just tuning in, if you just dropped into the stream, obviously if you're listening, you've been with us for a while. But if you are tuning in on the YouTube or Facebook channel and you're watching this and you're like, what are they talking about? We have established, who Kyle Rittenhouse is, what led to the riots in Kenosha, why two different sides of people were gathered there on the night of these shootings, what transpired, the kinds of people and circumstances that led up to these fatal moments, and kind of setting the scene for this. So let's go to the Rosenbaum shooting. So what happens is this escalates, and Rosenbaum begins to chase Kyle Rittenhouse. Okay, this is established fact, right? He begins to run after Kyle. That's Kyle Rittenhouse. Pause it. Go back for a second. The first shot you hear, guys, is fired on the left side of the screen by someone not involved. That is not Rosenbaum. That is not Kyle Rittenhouse. The first shot is like fired up into the air. I could not find the name of the person, if that was established, who fired that shot. But it is only related in the sense that it happens nearby. It is not, my understanding, shot at anyone. It's like a shot in the air. But you have to put yourself, now at this point, we have to put ourselves in the position. Here's how use of force is going to be understood. In Wisconsin, deadly force, it is not a duty to retreat state. That's important to understand. Some states in their use of force are duty to retreat. That means you have to be getting away from a violent situation. You cannot stand your ground, as it were. Wisconsin is not a duty to retreat state. So Kyle did not have to retreat from Rosenbaum's aggression legally. That's the law, okay? Understand that. So he is running from Rosenbaum, who is going after him. He is retreating, and then the shot pops off. So think about, in your mind, you're under stress. You're running from an aggressor who has already been brazen in the crowd, and now is running after you, and you hear a gunshot, and you turn, and witnesses say Rosenbaum is reaching for Kyle's gun, and then this happens. Now, what's important, pause it real quick. What you're seeing on the screen here, and what you were, okay, is Kyle immediately after he shoots Rosenbaum, calls 911 to report that he had just killed someone. He calls the police. That's his first reaction, is to stop. He doesn't keep running. The threat is over now, and he calls the police. However, what's happening off camera is that there's a crowd of people now yelling like, get him, and other types of things, and they're going to start running at Kyle, who then has to flee this scene. So a lot of people say he just shot him and left. That is not what happened. He shoots Rosenbaum, who witnesses, it has come to light, clearly have said that he was reaching for Kyle's gun. He is chasing after a man that is armed. So this, I mean, again, put it in legal perspective. And use of force is going to be dictated by the law, which I already said, Wisconsin is not a duty to retreat state. And it's going to be looked at through the lens of objectivity, which is what would a reasonable person perceive this as? What would a reasonable person do? Objective reasonableness is another standard when it comes to use of force in the law. So the law...
Mike, let me read the law really quick, just so that they're just not taking our word for it. So this is as it pertains to Wisconsin state legislator. So self-defense and defense of others. A person is privileged to threaten or intentionally use force against another for the purpose of preventing or terminating what the person reasonably believes to be an unlawful interference with his or her person by such other person. The actor may intentionally use only such force or threat thereof as the actor reasonably believes is necessary to prevent or terminate the interference. The actor may not intentionally use force which is intended or likely to cause death or great bodily harm unless the actor reasonably believes that such force is necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself or others. When you look at that in the context of the law, as they do a great job in the trial of really breaking this part down, as well as the provocation law that they're going to bring into this, which is going to be completely dismantled by Rittenhouse's defense. But he acted reasonably. He first tried to flee away, and then he was attacked by Rosenbaum.
Yes, and someone brought up a good correction that I need to make right now, is that the call was to a friend of his to say that he had just shot someone. It wasn't to 911. So the source that I have on that was definitely incorrect, and I just confirmed it. So thank you for bringing that up. But the point still stands as well, that the first instinct was to stop, render aid, and make someone aware of his actions, not to just run away. The reason I bring this up is because it shows him running away relatively quickly. And a lot of what has been portrayed in the media is that Kyle shot him and then took off, like just leaving the scene of where he shot someone. But that's not what happened. He got on the phone, and then he was being chased by another group of people, and that's when he leaves, and we pick up into the next sequence of shooting. So definitely make that correction here, that that initial call was not to 911. That is correct. Definitely fact check me on that. Thank you so much. And you guys can decide if that changes the actions of Kyle by calling someone and saying what he had done, and being willing to stop in the circumstance of what he had just done versus just running away. My point in this is that he didn't just shoot him and then run away. He stopped with the victim. So anyway, there's that. Now he runs away from that situation into the street, and then this is what we see next. There he is. Someone hits him in the back of the head with something. He keeps running, and he ends up stumbling and falling. Pause that real quick. He is surrounded. Like, it's hard to count on the screen. But if you're Kyle Rittenhouse and you're falling on the ground looking up, I would say that if he scanned around, we've got a solid 30 plus people in a pretty immediate vicinity, and he's already been hit in the head once. And so people are yelling, "That's the guy! Get him! Get that MFer!" All this stuff. So this is it's a crazy situation. And then the next shooting happens. When this guy with the skateboard, Anthony Huber, comes up, he gets shot. When supposedly he's holding his skateboard in one hand and trying to get Kyle's gun in the other, but from other angles and from, it's whether he was getting hit with a skateboard. So we're like, well, a skateboard is not a weapon. No, but anything can be used as a weapon that can cause bodily harm.
And you can go on YouTube right now and type in dudes fighting with skateboards, and you can see very much how that is a weapon. It is a beautiful weapon. And when you grab a skateboard by the trucks, you can really have some leverage there.
So that was the second shooting. And then the third shooting, which I think might have happened in that little clip that we just played. The third shooting is the survivor, Gage, who, just show the photo real quick. The photo with Gage with a gun in his hand. Because I don't want to belabor the point too much, because a lot of people know this stuff already. But Gage basically has this handgun in his hand and now is going after Kyle, trying to do what to him? What does Kyle think is going to happen when a man with a gun now is pointing a gun at him? And Kyle only fires his weapon. It's actually pretty impressive, the situational awareness that Kyle has through this, honestly, from a firearms perspective. He only fires when that gun is raised. The gun is in his hand, but it's only when it's raised toward Kyle that shots are fired. And that is Gage. And we're gonna hear from Gage in the trial section, because I think it's that is the slam dunk moment, I think, for the defense, even though it was a prosecution witness. So those are the three shootings that happen. Again, 2 deceased. Rosenbaum and Huber die of their injuries, and Gage survives his injuries. And that brings us up to Kyle leaves. He heads home, and he does report to the police. and he's ultimately not taken into any form of custody until the next morning in Antioch.
But he is pepper sprayed. So he goes up to the vehicle. The cops are trying to pursue what they think is an active shooter, because that's what's reported to them.
That's what's reported to the cops.
And so this guy's running up to them with his hands up, and he's trying to explain to him that he is the shooter, but the cops don't really quite catch that.
Oh, where is that
because of
one
the
photo?
chaos? And so they spray him, and they tell him to get the fuck away from the patrol vehicle. So again, that is why I read at the beginning of this feed that war is the realm of uncertainty. 3/4 of the factors on which action in war is based are wrapped in fog of greater or less uncertainty. There's just so much going on, so much for each person to process, and everybody's going to process things differently in their own way. Facts are going to get thrown out, misconceptions, misperceptions, tons of things are going to play into this. This is one of them, where the cops thought this guy is just some asshole trying to direct them into what's going on. He gets too close to the car. They're like, get the fuck out of here, dude. Sprayed him.
Well, that's part of the narrative too of what Gage said, right? He thought the whole angle is, he thought that Kyle was an active shooter, so he was going to step into the situation with his firearm. Yeah, show that photo there, Elijah. This is Kyle with his hands up to the police. Okay, when they show up, that's him, hands up, surrendering to the police. So, there is a lot of craziness, and we're gonna pause here. We gotta thank our sponsors, Cardomax and Simply Safe, for making this show a reality. I'm gonna take a quick break. Use the restroom, Eric, if you're cool at the helm, to brag about Cardomax, which I had my immune booster each day through my COVID experience to keep the good fight up. In no way am I saying that Cardomax cures COVID. I'm just saying that I was happy to know that I was putting good stuff in my body. I piled on the kitchen sink of vitamins and my immune booster to stay hydrated and keep me moving during a time that I was sick. So I was very grateful to have that on hand as I was battling illness. But I'm gonna hit the restroom real quick, and guys, stick around through the ad reads, support our sponsors. We appreciate you, and then we're gonna dive in for what happens after Kyle is stopped by the police that night, and then into the trial and kind of give our takeaways here. So we got a supersized episode because I'm sure we're going to go about another hour. What would you we're going to go another hour. And then we are also, probably going to have to go live on Monday or Tuesday when the deliberation happens. But for right now, it is that time of the year when you wake up with a cough, a sore throat, or other annoying symptoms for no reason other than it's gotten a little bit colder outside. So that's why you need Cardomax Immune Booster to keep your body 100%. Dude, I love all these reviews that you guys are sending me of the energy intensifier from Cardomax, that you guys are staying awake in your cop cars. You're staying alert while putting good things in your body. The immune booster is just another tool that you need to have in your kit. Cardomax Immune Booster uses all the natural ingredients that increases the body's ability to adapt to stressors, increase muscle endurance, and provide other immune system benefits. Owned and operated by former Navy SEAL and fellow drinking bro, which is even cooler than what's cooler than being a Navy SEAL? Being a drinking bro. That's what's cooler than being a Navy SEAL. Sean Matson, Cardomax Immune Booster comes in an easy to mix liquid packet in 2 great flavors, orange and watermelon. My favorite is the watermelon. It tastes great. The ingredients are healthy, and it's made by a veteran and a drinking bro. So from November 8th through the 12th, for a limited time, you get 30% off your next 4 orders. This week only, Cardomax will donate $5 from every order to the BRCC, the Black Rifle Coffee Company Fund, to support veteran small businesses. I actually own a small business and still a distilling company, so I'm really, really all in. It means a lot to me. So this is a great way to support veterans and small businesses, especially since we've been taking such a huge hit in the last 2 years. Additionally, Cardomax will have 50 custom USA ice shakers for sale. Cardomax has a new hydration line. Yes, you can use our promo code for that too. Cardomax offering Failure to Stop, an exclusive offer, 30% off your next 4 orders. Go to cardomax.com, use that promo code Wolfpack. That is CARDOMAX.com, and use the promo code Wolfpack, and you'll get 30% off your next 4 orders. Cardomax.com, helping you
achieve your max. And again, guys, we appreciate you hanging on. This is what keeps the show on the road, right? This is what keeps our show up and going. It's how we get paid. So you guys supporting our sponsors and even just listening to these ad reads really does a lot for us. But Simply Safe. If you have ever wanted to make your home feel safer, there is no better time than now. This week, our friends at Simply Safe are giving Fair to Stop listeners 40%. Dude, I don't know how these guys do 40% off. With my distillery, there's no way. I can't even give you guys like 20% off without taking a huge hit. So these companies out there freaking giving 40% off. Absolutely crazy. But they're giving our listeners 40% off their award-winning home security. We love Simply Safe because it is everything you need to make your home safe. Indoor, outdoor cameras, comprehensive sensors, all monitored around the clock by trained professionals who can help the instant you need it. I love Simply Safe mainly because, one, it gives me a peace of mind of what's going on in my home, but two, it's the easiest, simply the safest. It's super easy, guys. You don't even have to drill into your wall. They actually come with sticky back things that you stick on the drywall. You put the camera on there, so you don't even have to have tools. This is so easy. Boston Joe could do it. Simply Safe was even named Best Home Security System of 2021 by U.S. News and World Report. You can easily customize a system for your home online in minutes and even get free custom recommendations from Simply Safe. These are Simply Safe's biggest discounts of the year. You can get a complete home security system starting at just over $100. There are no long-term contracts, no commitments. It's a really easy way to start feeling have a bit more of a peace of mind when it comes to your home. Take advantage of Simply Safe's holiday sale and get 40% off your new home security system by visiting simplysafe.com/wolfpack. Again, that's simplysafe.com/wolfpack for 40% off your entire system. Hurry. This offer ends soon. That was for you.
There we go.
That was for you.
How was my poopy? It was just a little pee-pee. It was good. I had... Wait, did I just confess to something? No, I had to heat up some coffee, and boy, oh boy. I still have a little... I have some energy issues, man. I'm starting to wear down here, but I'm pushing on for the Wolfpack, baby. All right. I want to go through as we pick up what happened immediately in the wake of the shootings. Kyle did testify that he was trying to get to the police line. He was trying to get to where he knew the cops were. And he tries to give himself up, as it were, like to get their attention. We showed the photo, hands up, right, in front of police vehicles, but they were reporting to an active shooter, like you said. So in the trial, this is what comes up. In the first public explanation, I'm reading this from Police One. Since that night, Officer Pep Moretti said that he and his partner were responding to an active shooter call during the unrest when they spotted Rittenhouse walking down the street with his hands up. He said neither he nor his partner heard bystanders yell, "That dude right there just shot them," as they sat in their squad car. The partner's sole focus was getting up the street and helping people who appeared to be victims of an active shooting. There was still gunfire erupting around us, so we still thought he was an active threat. Again, Kyle was not the only person there with a firearm. Gunshots were ringing out all over. Okay? Video of the armed 17-year-old walking toward armored vehicles without being stopped went viral and held up by many as an example of white privilege. Listen, which black person was shot in this? I'll wait. No, I won't. I'll just answer it. Nobody. Stop it. Stop inserting race into this. That's ridiculous. But after Rittenhouse was shooed away by police, he actually got pepper sprayed. He wouldn't get out of the way, so one of the partners drops his firearm and blasts pepper spray downfield at Rittenhouse. But they literally described what was going on as the partners, he says, didn't think it was unusual to see someone walking around with an assault rifle strapped to their chest, given the chaos and violence that engulfed in downtown. He described it like a quote-unquote war zone. The officer said, I probably spoke to more people that had pistols, rifles, and baseball bats than not. So this is a police officer's testimony about the environment in Kenosha that night. A war zone. Speaking to your quote that you opened the show with, right? Like this fog of war. This is not, we all get to look back at these clips, these moments, and we get to judge them, but in the big scheme of things, It was crazy out there. It was crazy out there. And even the cops were like, it wasn't weird to see people with guns and bats. That was the norm. That was just what it was like out there. So craziness is
I like how the quote. I mean, I literally, I've been in combat. I've been in what the military describes as close combat. I've been in hand-to-hand combat in the streets of being a police officer, and I know what it's like. And so does Mike, and so does every field cop or SWAT team cop or any law enforcement officer in a big city. That we've all been through it, and I think in that quote where it says three quarters of the factors on which action in war is based are wrapped in a fog of greater or less uncertainty. And that just cannot be more true. The things on what you do in those moments, it's uncertain why you did them. It's uncertain to be able to describe them in some instances. And so this is the fog of war. These streets are covered with chaos and anarchy, and you really can't explain it until you can smell the things that he smelled, see the things that he sees, and experience the things that he experienced firsthand.
100%. And now one thing that we haven't really touched on that I want to get to before we go into the trial itself. So ultimately, fast forward, Kyle ends up driving back home and encountering the Antioch police, where then he is taken into custody at that point. And then I cannot remember off the top of my head how long it was before charges were filed. It wasn't a crazy long period of time. Someone can look this up in the comments if you want. I think it was like a week from the time that he spoke to Antioch police and made contact with them in his hometown until charges were filed. Could be wrong on that. I saw so many dates and numbers and videos and clips that sometimes it does start to run together, especially when I started feeling halfway normal yesterday. So I crammed a lot of research in a day period. But one thing that we haven't touched on yet that has come up in the comments, of course, and it's a good question is, well, is he allowed to have a gun in the first place, right? I will say this, that but before we address it, even if he's not supposed to have a gun, let's say that you are a convicted felon, and the law is that if you are a convicted felon, you can't own a firearm. Let's say that you are a convicted felon and you are in possession in your home of a firearm. You shouldn't have it, but you do, right? And your home is broken into and someone comes in and you shoot this home invader in self-defense. You could be convicted of a felon in possession of a firearm and acquitted of homicide because you still defended yourself. So the two issues are the charges in the trial. He's got multiple charges for obviously the homicides that were like technically a homicide definitely happened. A human was killed. The homicides, then also the endangerment charges, but these are felonies. But then he's got this lone misdemeanor charge of a minor in possession of this weapon because he was 17 at the time. So some people obviously are upset that he had a gun in the first place. Okay, that's definitely an issue we need to tackle.
I think you should be equally upset that Rosenbaum was pursuing a 17-year-old when under court order he's not allowed to pursue a 17-year-old. There you go.
He's already got a problem with minor boys. He was just adding to the mix, apparently. But the point being is you have to pull the connection that you're making out. The self-defense portion of this, even though it resulted in deadly force being used and the death of two people, is separate from the issue of whether or not he should have had a gun. Okay? Those are two separate things. Originally, they were talking about it's illegal to move a gun across state lines, but it was established that he didn't move the gun across state lines. It was someone that had the gun in Kenosha, in Wisconsin, that he obtained the gun from. So that wasn't the issue. Transporting it across state lines was a non-issue that some people thought was going to exist. But Wisconsin state law allows for a person under the age of 18 to have a gun if they have an equivalent hunter's safety course or something in their state or whatever. I don't know that it's been established that he had the equivalent of a hunter's safety thing to have this gun. But the law, here's the thing. The law saying that you have to be 18 or older to have this in Wisconsin, that law also only applies to short-barreled rifles and shotguns. So there's like this fuzzy, weird gray area. Now, this issue alone is simply a Second Amendment issue, right? Whether or not this guy should be able to, at the age of 17, carry a gun in public. So that's one issue, okay? So let's talk about that before we dive into the trial itself and talk about the different pieces of that. But what do you think when it comes to like the gun issue? And tread carefully, you liberal.
Yeah, I don't want to piss off that guy. He's super funny, but I don't even know his name, but I think he's goofy. I think even if he was to be found guilty of not being able to carry a firearm at 17, we're talking about a simple misdemeanor. We've got kids that are not allowed to be expelled because they bring a firearm to school anymore. So in Southeast Raleigh, they made it a law that a child cannot be expelled for simply bringing a firearm to school. It can only be expelled if they use the firearm or present it. So simply having a gun in your backpack in Southeast Raleigh, which they have a lot of gang issues in Southeast Raleigh. So if they accidentally, just get caught with a gun in their backpack, there's nothing there. It's a misdemeanor charge. They don't even get suspended or expelled from school for that. So I think it's kind of a moot point, because if this was every day, and let's say he got caught hunting with a short-barreled shotgun, I mean, this kid's not going to go to jail for any length of time at 17 years old for just carrying a gun outside of what the law says he can. So I don't know how that contributes to homicide or being guilty of murder for simply carrying a firearm when you weren't supposed to. Also, exchanging firearms in weird situations is not something that's uncommon, especially if you're a protector or a warrior. I'll give you a case in point. I was doing an alcohol tasting at a local establishment in a local town, and riots broke out. This was at the beginning of the George Floyd thing. And I got a call from a particular law enforcement person that says, "Hey, are you in downtown? I saw on Facebook that you were." I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "You realize that like those riots are heading right towards you right now?" I said, "No." And he's like, "Do you have your gun with you?" I said, "No, actually, I did not bring a gun with me tonight." And he's like, "Do you want me to run you one? I'm out on the golf cart. Meet me in 5 minutes outside the establishment." And that dude passed off a firearm to me. and I carried it because that's what we do. Like, that's what protectors, that's what warriors do. We should always have firearms. I should have had a firearm. I had a knife on me, did not have a firearm on me because I'm a little bit out of the game now. But in extenuating circumstances, saying, "Yo, you got your piece on you?" No. Well, you should, because shit's about to get crazy. So that's kind of where my take is on that. I think I think the point is mute, especially the fact that just because he had a firearm at 17 and not 18, it's a very it's lesser of a crime anyway. It doesn't.
Yeah, somebody's talking about the Wisconsin state law, possession of a dangerous weapon by person under 18, 948.60. In this section, quote unquote, dangerous weapon means any firearm, loaded or unloaded. Electric weapon is defined by 941.295. So it goes on to define these things. Any firearm, loaded or unloaded. However, there is a 941.28 possession of short-barreled shotgun, means a shotgun having one or more barrels having a length of less than 18 inches. So I'm not sure if there's differences. Rifle means a firearm designed or redesigned. I'm not going to just sit here and read the law section per se. Any firearm seized under this section is subject to 968.203 and is presumed to be contraband. So firearm means a weapon by act or force of gunpowder, regardless of whether it is operable or inoperable due to disassembly, and then it has a case law in here. Possession of a firearm with that. So there's a few things that we would need to dig into. I watched some videos from attorneys that basically said the issue comes down in the Rittenhouse case as far as the possession of the gun under the age of 18 is the hunting, the equivalent out-of-state hunting safety thing that would allow it, and a supervision issue of adults, because obviously he's 17. And so can you be in possession of a weapon that is used in hunting or something like that if it's not a short-barreled weapon? Because that is against Wisconsin law to go. I don't know that they have a weird term for going. I mean, it just means being out in public with that firearm. So anyway, I don't know that I'm going to be able to dissect, or we're going to be able to dissect Wisconsin state law as it relates to this firearm. I only know that what I saw from attorneys speaking on the case as far as like the culpability or lack of culpability of him violating the misdemeanor law of being in possession of the firearm. But any other thoughts on that aspect?
No, but I did see an interesting question about, so we talk about his reasons for carrying a firearm. Hubert, the bicep guy. No, Hubert wasn't the bicep guy, was he?
No, bicep guy is Gage. The survivor.
Yeah. I don't know. Was Gage a felon?
I
don't know that he was.
He had a drunk going while intoxicated with a firearm before, but I think that was a misdemeanor, and then his other drunk driving charge was dropped. The charges were dropped.
Yeah, he had a burglary charge at one time, but that got dropped as well. Who knows why? Go armed with a firearm while intoxicated, Class A misdemeanor is all he had. So, yeah, it doesn't look like he was a felon, but it does show a pattern of carrying a firearm loosely. And
I'm looking at the Milwaukee Journey Sentinel just to put at least a temporary cap on the gun discussion itself. From early in the case, the defense repeatedly tried to have the possession count dismissed, citing an apparent exception in a confusingly worded statute. And we referenced that statute here just a few minutes ago. Confusingly worded statute that states anyone under 18 who, quote unquote, goes armed with a deadly weapon violates the law. Judge denied the motions and let the charges stand. So there's dispute on the language of apparently conflicting statutes, one being more broad, that someone represented like any firearm, and then another that specifically states this idea of a short barrel, like has barrel length requirement and stuff like that. At the end of the day, I would lean toward he probably was breaking the law by being 17 and having a weapon on him. That's from a legal perspective. Now, my personal convictions about firearms, I think that all the gun laws that we have are too much. I think we have way too many gun laws, and I have no problem with a 17-year-old open carrying a firearm. I think open carrying is dumb personally. I don't do it, but I support people's rights to do it. And now, whether or not Kyle should have been there with a firearm legally at 17, I think that the law is against Kyle on this one.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking about first-degree murder trial here, and that's again, that's why I was.
Well, that's why the issues
that's
are
a terrible defense, because it's like, but I mean, what they're trying to say in this case, and listen, one of the most entertaining trials I've ever watched. So, if you get a chance to watch it, but what they're saying and why it's a big deal that he was carrying a gun at the age of 17 is because they're trying to use the provocation laws against Rittenhouse in this case, saying that he was provoking because he was carrying a gun. So carrying a gun in itself provoked this. But Rittenhouse's defense, they actually go through the law as it pertains to provocation, and literally every inch of that law they're able to dispute. And all of the ADA needed was one factor of that law, which there's a whole bunch. There's A, B, C. There's a section of 3, 4, 5, and 6 that all they had to do was take one piece of that case law and find Rittenhouse guilty of it. And they could have ended the entire trial on provocation, but they could not prove not one section of this law as provocation simply by walking around with a firearm.
Yeah, no. And the fact that there's video evidence of lots more people, again, lots more that we even see on video. The first shot that we heard, it right before Rittenhouse shoots Rosenbaum, the first shot, it's fired by somebody that's not Kyle. There is the police officer's testimony saying they continued to hear gunshots all around them, even when Kyle was trying to surrender to them. And they were trying to move past him to get to the victims and to address the active, quote unquote, active shooter, because there were multiple gunshots. So to blame these homicides on Kyle as the instigating party or the provoking party doesn't make any legal sense or any practical sense, given the war zone nature testified to as this whole thing unfolded. So again, but you have to separate the two. I agree that legally, I think Kyle is in the wrong for the possession of the firearm, even though morally, ethically, personally, I don't have a single problem with it. I think from just the legal perspective, he should not have had that firearm by Wisconsin law.
And I totally agree with you on that one. However, that's not what the ADA was using that defense for. I don't know that they give two shits about whether he could carry a gun at 17 or not. What they are trying to prove there is that simply openly carrying a firearm
was provoking.
Was provoking. And so the first part of that law reads I'll make sure I didn't just so provocation affects the privilege of self-defense as follows. A person who engages in unlawful conduct of a type likely to provoke others to attack him or her and thereby does provoke an attack is not entitled to claim the privilege of self-defense. So what they're saying is the fact that he showed up unlawfully, because that is an unlawful act, carrying a gun at 17. Mm-hmm. They're saying that because he was doing something unlawful by carrying a gun, that was provoking. And that's
a weak
very
connection.
Very weak connection. And the fact that they spent so much time on the whole provocation thing shows a very, very weak.
Well, as we'll see, the witnesses
weren't
here. The witnesses and even one of the recipients of Kyle's bullets was unable to establish that Kyle was an aggressor in any way, shape, or form.
And here we go further. So they were able to disprove that just simply having a gun and walking around in an open carry thing is provoking, because they disprove that very fast, because there was a lot of people on both sides carrying a firearm. So, but the next section of that says that if, let's say that he was unlawfully carrying a gun and he did provoke, he cannot use self-defense. However, the privilege lost by provocation may be regained if the actor in good faith withdraws from the fight and gives adequate notice thereof to his assailant. So when Rittenhouse is running away,
correct.
Even if he was provoking, he
legally
ran
speaking,
away.
Even
first,
if he had provoked
legally.
it,
even if
once he started running away, now the game is reset.
If that guy pursues him, the
Correct.
game is reset. He can now go back to using self-defense. And so they were able to dispel that because, we do see Rittenhouse running away. And then it just, that whole defense there, not defense, but that whole offense from the ADA, I think shows you how weak this case really is.
Yeah, exactly. So don't confuse the issue of the gun with the issue of self-defense and the actual charges of first degree intentional homicide here, because those are two different charges. They're trying to leave them in there, I think, to try to serve their purpose of making that connection. But I think it fails, because just having the firearm, especially when tons of other people had it, does not demonstrate an intent to kill someone. It just doesn't. And even when Kyle was on the stand, the prosecution kept saying, and so you fired because you wanted to kill. And Kyle didn't take the bait and said, no, I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to stop the threat. I shot, and then when I perceived that the threat was over, I stopped firing my gun. So the whole concept of bringing a gun, hoping to be able to kill someone, kind of falls apart in the case if you've watched it at all. So once Kyle is charged, obviously, fast forward to building a case. It ends up in Judge Bruce Schroeder's court, who has taken his fair share of heat. I see things, CNN, and listen, man, you hear me and Tansy, we talk about ACAB. We don't trust politicians, period. I don't care what side of the aisle they're on.
It's APAC. ACAB is the all cops are bad. APAC.
Oh, yeah,
APAC.
whatever.
APAC.
No, all cops are bald. All cops are beautiful. All cops are beautiful. ACAB. That's true. Yeah, sorry.
APAC is all
COVID
politicians
brain.
are.
This is the fog of war right now for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our thoughts on politicians are no secret because they're all there for the same purpose to us in general. But the CNN articles, one is the judge first got heat because he wasn't going to allow Rosenbaum, Huber, and Gage. I call him Gage because I can't pronounce his last name right. Victims, because he didn't want it to taint the jury. They died. They were the people that died, but to call them victims automatically would paint. He ruled that he couldn't do that. But he did rule that you could call them looters or rioters if it could be established that that's what they were doing, which they haven't referred to them as that because they couldn't establish, that they were looting or whatever, rioting earlier. So he took heat for that.
But I think that's reasonable, right? Like that's fair. Like if you want to have a fair and impartial trial, that's why we don't allow suspects to come into the courtroom with big orange jumpsuits on,
right,
depicting them as a criminal, because they don't want the jury to just go ahead and assume that's a criminal, right? So
yeah, and they pooled 100 UPP. You can fact check me on this. How many people Judge Schroeder polled in for the jury selection? I think it was like 115, 120 people. I could be wrong, but he put a lot of people, and they selected 20 jurors, one of whom had to be let go when I guess she got caught cracking a Jacob Blake joke after selection out in the parking lot, and he calls her on the stand, confronts her about it. She admits it, and he has to cut her loose, obviously because he wants a fair trial.
An impartial trial. Now, listen, it's not just the judge that gets a say in this. The DA, the ADA, and the defense get to question each one of these jurors publicly. Like, so everybody in there gets to hear it, and then they get to address the judge and say, I would like juror number 13 to be excused under the pretense of he's super pro law enforcement and he's wearing a LeBron James never heard of her t-shirt in the courtroom right now. And the judge will say, yes, I grant that to you, and that way that we don't have to, that you are judged by your peers, right?
Yes. So the judge goes through this whole process, and then in the trial, he's had some notable moments. This is the CNN thing I was talking about. Both of these stories is where I first saw them. And one was that his ringtone shows he's biased. Okay. His ringtone goes off one day in court, and it is Proud to Be an American, Lee Greenwood, right? Classic song, because the song is often played at Trump rallies. What's funny is you have an American flag in every courtroom in this country.
Sure.
Pride, and we've heard Judge Schroeder blast the prosecution on a couple times for mocking Kyle Rittenhouse's rights to remain silent. UPP pulled it up. A large number of prospective jurors, about 150 people, were polled to
UPP. Do we have, or can we get in the next few minutes, video of him shredding the ADA about Kyle using his First Amendment right to be quiet? Do we have that?
If you look up YouTube, like
probably
Judge
the most
Schroeder,
beautiful. That's probably the most
at prosecution or something like that.
Yeah, that was intense.
There was another one, a follow-up the next day, where the prosecutor's like smirking at Judge Schroeder, and he's like, what am I saying that deserves this look on your face? What Ooh. I'm talking about the Constitution. Do you have a problem with that? Do you have a problem with the fact that we're talking about the Constitution, like, and upholding that in this courtroom, but we have an American flag. To say what is wrong or biased about a judge being proud to be an American. That's why we say this trial is really, really important for all of us, because what's being touted as biased and problematic here is what has been long-standing objectivity and promotion and upholding of the Constitution of the United States of America, which is always in favor of the defendant. Always, always, always. Because it is innocent until proven guilty. Kyle Rittenhouse should be treated as an innocent human being until he is found guilty. This is what is afforded to us in our system that distinguishes our system from so many others around the world historically, is that presumption of innocence. And that is what should make us proud to be Americans. And so what's wrong if he has a ringtone that's proud to be an American? If he's got an American flag in his courtroom and he has a ringtone is proud to be an American, that doesn't automatically make him biased because that song has been played at Trump rallies. This is the most asinine nonsense. Then he made a joke, and I'm just bringing up the judge because this is the first part of the trial that sticks out to me, is the judge. The judge made a joke when they were talking about ordering Chinese food. And he's like, we could probably get that in time unless it's stuck offshore in some, whatever, some port or some body of water. Joking about the crazy supply chain crisis. Everybody's waiting for stuff to get shipped. Everything's stuck in the water. And he's referencing maybe as long as our food's not something that's like stuck. And now they're saying that was racist against Asians.
But
because many people blame the supply chain crisis on China for the coronavirus, and so that's anti-Asian. It's this kind of nonsense. I don't even understand with our current media how anybody can get a fair trial for just about anything these days.
I mean, it's exactly like I was saying at the beginning of the show with my 4-year-old. They're going to use your words and everything little in their tantrum to try to prove you to be the liar, to be thinking. It's just grasping at straws. It's just petulant. It's just acting like children. The ADA is getting ripped apart right now. And this is all they have to go on. It's like any time that LeBron starts to lose, he has to flop and act like a child. And that's exactly what the ADAs are doing right now. Flopping around and acting like children.
I might have found the clip. I'm not. I mean, it's like a 14-minute video.
14
No,
video.
don't play the whole 14 minutes.
No, but like I cut into the middle.
Right. Just this first part, I can already tell you've got the right video. So go ahead and hit play for just a second.
I asked the court to strongly admonish him. And the next time it happens,
Yep.
I'll be asking for a mistrial with prejudice. He's an
Yeah, go ahead. This is nice. Go ahead.
Freezing.
Oh.
Finger? There we go. First of all, Your Honor, this was the subject of a motion. I'm well aware of that. And the court left the door open.
For me, not for you.
That's the judge.
My understanding of
You should have come and asked for reconsideration. You did on the one motion, and in fact, I granted your motion.
They already moved the jury out.
Go ahead and fast forward this part real quick, because this is going to be semantic.
Why would you think that made it okay for you, without any advance notice, to bring this matter before the jury? I was astonished when you began your examination by commenting on the defendant's post-arrest silence. That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country for 40 years, 50 years. I have no idea why you would do something like that. And it gives, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so go ahead and stop
I don't know what you're up to.
Go ahead and stop. So what the judge quickly said was like, this gives, if Rittenhouse at this point is found guilty, this is an open door to a mistrial, because he violated, and this is a very experienced attorney, very experienced, and he knew better. They had already discussed it per the trial that was off limits, that he could not bring up the fact that he used his First Amendment right to stay silent, right? And it's just inappropriate. And he brought it up in front of the jury. Why? Because the damage is already done. The jury's already heard. And it can't, like, although the judge is going to say that erase that from your brain, you have to pretend like you never heard that. I mean, come on. Yeah, we can pretend that.
Yeah, that's like
a
lawyer saying something, and then the somebody's like, objection. They're like, withdrawn. I take it back. Well, they've already heard it.
Yeah, so I mean, it is what it is. But this was grossly negligent on his part, and I think what the judge is saying here is, hey, if Rittenhouse gets guilty, it's going to be a mistrial because this is grossly negligent on your part.
Yeah, the judge has to monitor this. Yeah, it's crazy. But that's the judge, and the jury. Like I said, the 150 about pooled, 20 were selected. Obviously, if you don't know about our criminal justice system, you just don't select 12 people because somebody could get sick, somebody could create a problem for themselves. Like we saw, the one juror had to be dismissed from a joke about Jacob Blake, obviously showing that they wouldn't be able to be fair in the trial. And so you have extras who are all listening to the case, so that if one person got sick or whatever else, there's somebody else to take their place. So that's how it works. And we just don't have the time. We're already at over 2 hours, but we don't have the time to like recap everything every day. But the basic premise, and we touched on this a little bit, the basic premise has been that the prosecution, the whole thing is to say that there was intent from Kyle. This is first degree that he's being charged with. Not only the reckless endangerment aspect, but homicide, right? First degree, full intent to kill, to take the lives unjustly of these two individuals, Rosenbaum and Huber. And then the charges for great bodily harm and intent to murder, intent of homicide against Gage. So these 6 charges, okay? Now, what's the whole case is hinging on this idea that they have to prove that he intended to do it. The first connection was saying him having a gun and showing up there was provoking, okay? And we already showed how that falls short, tremendously short. Then you have to try to prove that the people that he shot weren't trying to do him harm, so he couldn't be shooting them in self-defense. And here's where I want to play what was literally the prosecution team was face-palming, literally, when Gage testified. I want to play this piece of the testimony, and this was, I don't know, to me, the reason we're playing this over and against any other testimony is this is representative of the prosecution's case to try to dismantle the self-defense defense, and it failed miserably. So this is Gage on the stand.
With your arms up in the air, he never fired, right?
Correct.
It wasn't until you pointed your gun at him, advanced on him, with your gun, now your hands down, pointed at him, that he fired, right?
Correct.
Oh, Jesus.
Pause that for a
second. So what you need is those glasses.
just that zoom in. He knows. Go back. There's a moment he's like, oh, shit.
Hey, Elijah, can you...
Play this louder, can you?
Elijah, can you...
This is as loud as the clip is. What?
Elijah, can you take that clip and put it on our Facebook later today where the glasses go over to his face and the cigarette comes on, the thug life? Da-da-da-da-dum.
Yeah.
You've got... Let's do it. Okay, go ahead. Push play.
Correct.
Oh, shit. Look at her face.
Your gun, now your hands down, pointed at him, that he fired, right?
Correct.
Here
like
it is.
even her face.
Right now. Oh, shit. Do we see the prosecutors do the face palm? That's Kyle Rittenhouse's
Rittenhouse
reaction.
is like, well, that's good.
I don't know if they pan to the prosecution table or not. It's pretty iconic. It's been memed 1,000 times on the internet. But so basically, they talk to Gage, and they're like, so when you had your hands up, he had a gun in his hand. Let's not forget this. Gage had a pistol in his hand. Okay. When your hands were up, Kyle didn't fire. That's correct. It was only when you dropped your hand and pointed the gun at him that he fired. Yes. And that's all you need. Like the survivor, like the other video shows clearly anyway, it shows that Rosenbaum was pursuing. And we saw the FBI Fleur video too. So if there's any hint of, well, the video angle it might look like Kyle was running from Rosenbaum, but he wasn't really. The FBI, for whatever reason, who apparently is watching everybody all the time, happens to have FLIR video of the whole thing. That blows my mind, whatever. But it clearly shows Rosenbaum is the aggressor against Kyle on FLIR video from caught on a helicopter above the incident. So that definitely happened. Are you looking for the FLIR video? Yeah. Oh, that's all right. I don't know where it's at, but if it shows up on the screen, it shows up on the screen. Great. But we don't need any audio from it. People can just see it if they see it in the background as B-roll. So then you have Huber, who Kyle gets hit in the head with a skateboard, and someone's reaching for his firearm. He shoots and defends himself there. And then lastly is Gage, who has a gun. And we clearly hear from Gage's own mouth that Kyle did not fire on him with his hands up, which goes to show that there was no intent on Kyle's part to shoot Gage just because. That he had the intent to just kill people that night. It completely disproves that theory. Completely disprove that. So that is the prosecution's case in a nutshell.
The prosecution also brought in another blurry image that was embarrassing that nobody could decipher. And then on the stand, the person who manipulated the photo could not testify under oath that it had not been manipulated or added to the picture. And everybody was like, what the fuck? These are things that I've never seen happen in a trial before. This is the most interesting trial that I've ever sat and watched. I've enjoyed watching this trial off and on. I've kept an earbud in my ear the whole time. I'm excited for Monday. What do you think the outcome is going to be on this?
Well, first of all, before I answer that question, someone is mad that I call it FLIR instead of FLIR.
Okay.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, God.
FLIR. FLIR.
Yeah, we don't accent shame here. If we did that, Boston Joe wouldn't be a podcaster. So,
what do I think is going to happen? I think that I'm super excited for the closing arguments. I'm going to watch the closing arguments for sure. I'm very, very eager to hear that. I mean, at the end of the day, from what I have seen, the witness testimony recaps that I have seen, and if you want to see mostly what I've seen, it's on, like I told you, legalinsurrection.com. If you look up the tag Kyle Rittenhouse, it's a daily summary. That's where I spent most of my time watching video recaps and such. So from what I have seen of this trial, and I have not watched it 8 hours a day, there's no way the prosecution proved beyond a reasonable doubt that Kyle had intention to kill anyone. I haven't seen any shred of that evidence.
The evidence is overwhelmingly on the side of Rittenhouse in this case.
It's that testimony from Gage is consistent with every single person that testified. There were journalists there. Some of the footage we showed came from journalists that were on the scene. And the journalists corroborate Kyle's version of events as third-party witnesses. And they tried to push them certain directions, the prosecution did, and they kept trying to basically complete the sentence. Kyle Rittenhouse killed these people because he wanted to, right? Because he wanted to kill them. They tried to do that with every witness, and the witnesses were like, well, no, I can't say that. Like, I can't say that. Kyle was like, no, that's not why I did it. That's not why I fired my gun. It's not why I had a gun. That's not why I fired it. So even the witnesses that they were calling, trying to make their case, end up, just like Gage, proving the exact opposite of what their case is resting on. It's very, very weak.
Very weak. And I think what they weren't counting on was Rittenhouse being as articulate. And look, I'm impressed by this kid. At first, when my first perception of this incident was, what a dumbass. Who the fuck needs to involve themselves in some bullshit like this? But once I really started getting into the case, once I hear, again, perception is not reality. Once I heard his testimony, once I see him on the stand, see how he presents himself, see how that he's genuinely a caring human being that just really.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I as a dad, like, I'm sitting here looking at my son, and I envision him being 17 and deciding that he's going to go during the height of George Floyd protests and stuff somewhere downtown Detroit and be like, I'm taking my rifle, I'm going down there. I'd be like, is that really a good idea? Like,
no, man, I'd just be
I
playing
can
Call of
question
Duty.
the wisdom of this, right?
Yeah, so you're coming from
I can question the wisdom, saying I don't know
Yeah.
how smart it is
Right.
for anyone to be down there when tensions are high and none of it is accomplishing anything.
You know, you're a law enforcement officer. You have that mindset, and you've raised your children based on that mindset, as I've raised mine. I come from a family that was not military. I come from a family who is not.
You beat your kids when they drop forks in the ground on accident.
Sure. I come from a background. There's no law enforcement in my background. Period. My dad was a mailman. My grandfather was the treasurer of the post office, and so my dad doesn't understand when there's a war kicking off in Iraq and Afghanistan that I want to volunteer and go, because it's not part of his mindset. So I literally ignored everything that my dad told me, and I just went. And so I think on Kyle Rittenhouse's thing, it's like his parents probably didn't have that mindset and weren't able to give any good advice, because he's like, parents, you don't understand why I have this fire inside of me that needs to go protect somebody, that needs to go be that comic book hero that we grew up reading about. I mean, all these Disney movies, I mean, he's a character out of every Disney movie that's ever been written, right? Like a true underdog that just wants to go out and protect, wants to do things. And that's what he's acting on. He's very idealistic. And I would argue that the rioters and protesters had the same idealistic views that, hey, in the Disney movies, they always stand up and disobey their parents and do what is need to be done to bring justice to this world. And so they're doing the same thing. But yeah, I mean, that's where I stand on where he's at on that.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think that I think we can debate the wisdom of it, but I think on principle, the fact that somebody wants to go in and do something, you've seen your country, you've seen all these lootings, these riotings, these violent attacks on innocent people. That's why we started with the idea of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Jacob Blake. It's building. There's this tension out there. And for him to go, you know what? I'm going to go down there, and I don't want people tearing shit up anymore in my community. I'm sick of it. And the police can't do it all. I'm going down there to do something. I'm going to help. I think it was idealistic, but I don't have a problem with that idealism. I don't have a problem with the desire. I don't have a problem with that motivation. So with that, I stand with Kyle on that. Again, wiser minds might have prevailed by saying, I don't know if this is I don't know that looting and rioting in Kenosha over police stuff is something that's the battle I'm going to get involved in. Me, my kids, I don't know. I don't see myself saying, yeah, go down there and do that, kids, from a wisdom perspective. So that's just me on that. And I'm trying to be as unbiased in this as I can. What do I hope happens? I hope he's found not guilty. I mean, right. Like I said, I haven't sat through the trial. I'm not a juror. I haven't seen every piece of evidence. I haven't heard every single piece of testimony like they have. But from where I sit, from looking at what actually happened that night, that what we see on video, as we piece it together with what we know now in hindsight and what we have seen highlighted today, there is no way the prosecution made its case. And why he was charged in the first place is mind-numbing and is clearly politically motivated. This happened in the height of politically charged situations, and people feel the pressure to do something. And that they charged him, I think, prematurely. I think that it was politically driven, and I think that it's terrible that he's had to go through all this. And I hope that he's found not guilty based on my perspective of the case at this point, from it as objective as I can be.
We've all heard my opinion on the Derek Chauvin trial. I did believe that Chauvin was guilty in some aspects. I thought a 5-year sentence was probably reasonable, and he'd probably serve 2 years of that sentence, and then the other 3 would be unsupervised probation. But on this case, I feel like Rittenhouse did nothing wrong. Aside from, possibly carrying a firearm underage. And again, that's a misdemeanor charge that nobody's going to serve any time for anyway. But on this one, I think it would be safe to say that and I've watched the trial, I think the jury is going to side with him. I'll be very shocked if they didn't side with Rittenhouse because the law was explained so well. They really go into detail disproving every part of the case law in this, and not the case law, but just like legislative law that's written. If you go through all if you go through all the points, the A, B's, and the C's, they do a great job breaking it down to the jury, making it very explainable. Like I said, this is a phenomenal case to watch.
If you could go back up, Elijah, that one, Horace 4 says, if this perp was not a darling of the far right, i.e. a POC, person of color, this discussion would go in a very different direction. At least own your biases, guys. Let's not pretend systemic privilege doesn't exist. Well, Horace 4, here's the thing. There is not one shred of evidence that if he was a darling of the far right, then how was he arrested and charged? The victims were all white, the quote-unquote victims, right? They were all white. He's white. He was arrested. He was charged. He's on trial. So where in this are you seeing that systemic privilege stopped him from being arrested, charged, and put on trial for crimes that, are very, very weak case to prove in this case, which we just spent 2 hours exposing. But where is the proof of bias? Well, it's this kind of garbage. Everybody's just this knee jerk. If he wasn't privileged, then what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Well,
this
is
the opposite of privilege.
We're going to judge this guy on our feelings, and I feel like he's guilty, and I feel like he shouldn't have been there with a gun, and I feel like he was on the wrong side of this movement, and that he should have been with the protesters. So I feel like he should be guilty, and that's why we've got these Salem witch trials going on.
You can't do this. What if we didn't do this case breakdown? Well, what if Kyle Rittenhouse was black? We don't, because you don't what if yourself with arguments. It's a weak way to approach it. It's like, well, what if Donald Trump was president? Said that.
We just had a
let's
massive
deal with reality.
We just had a massive shooting in Chicago where the case was dismissed for mutual combat. You had two black people fighting each other with firearms, spraying bullets all over the place, and they chalked it off and just said, "Oh, it's mutual combat. We'll see you later." So where's the privilege here? If you had two white dudes shooting at each other,
it's silly.
Sure, they're both going to jail.
The reason your comment is silly, Horace, is because it's based on a mythological thing. It's not based on reality. It's based on some wild assumption that you're making that is disprovable on its face. Because if he was being protected by the systemic privilege, he would not be in the position he's in. I mean, it's disprovable on its face.
Right.
The other thing that I want to talk about to wrap this up real quick is the fact that the media and many other sources have portrayed this whole thing as, when it comes to the gun issue, is his military-styled assault rifle, assault weapon. Again, how you can get a fair trial with the media the way it is now is beyond freaking me. Back in the day when it was all newspapers and a lot of people just didn't read the news or watch the nightly news, major things could be happening in our country in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and no one would even know because they just, whatever, they didn't pay attention to that stuff. Now it's so in your face everywhere. I don't know how you can't be biased about certain things. It's very difficult. But oh my gosh, why are they portraying guns this way? Again, what difference? What is this military style? I mean, or assault weapon? All weapons have the ability to assault someone, do they not?
Yeah, but that doesn't fit the narrative, Mike. So if we call it a weapon, we call it a firearm. That doesn't paint a clear enough picture that we talked about this with the Breonna Taylor case, right? We have to invoke emotions. We have to spark this. We have to demonize things because what we have on its face is really nothing. So we have to demonize things, and we have to use lingo that scares people, like assault weapon. Breonna Taylor was alone in her house, an EMT. And we have to make you have all these feelings, because if you just read the facts of the case, you got nothing.
Yeah. You have to go based on facts. And Horace Ford has a follow-up where he said, terrible, quote unquote, terrible, he had to go through all this. Man put himself in harm's way with a long gun and used it to kill 2 people.
Sure.
He may or may not be guilty.
Sure.
But of course, systemic prejudices are mythological. Well, what I'm saying, Horace, is that you can't just throw out a random assertion that says that he's the benefit of systemic privilege when he did these things and was arrested and charged for them. So it disproves your assertion on its face. This can't be any more plain English, Horace. Your assertion is disprovable on its face because he was arrested and charged for the very things you're saying he is privileged against. Grow up intellectually if you're going to step into the arena on the Failure to Stop show.
Jimmy Bailey,
Guns up and giddy up.
Jimmy Bailey, who's smarter than all of us, says, so a white man put himself in the way of people taking advantage of a situation and kills white people. What's this have to do with race? And I agree. I don't think this has anything to do with race or systemic racism or any of that stuff.
Silly.
And that's the kind of the point of this whole case. The only reason this is nationwide news and it's a nationwide trial is because there's another agenda. Nobody gives 2 shits about who he killed or why he did it. This whole thing is backed on. They needed to get an election. They needed to have guns demonized. They needed to have the far right demonized. And this is, again, a right versus left thing. I don't like to play the right versus left. I like to play what does the law say and what was done in the confounds of the law. And when you look at this trial, the judge does a great job of keeping everything within the law and leaves emotions out of it. And what does the law say and what happened in regards to what the law has to say. And in that, I think this case on Monday is going to show that Kyle Rittenhouse is not guilty of anything. And that is my point. But we've turned it into a left versus a right thing. And this has nothing to do with the right versus the left. This has to do with,
it's just increasingly harder because everyone does this total binary thing. And it happens on the right too. It happens with, people called 100%. Libtards. There's such a thing as conservatards. Okay?
Sure.
100%. When you're just blind to your own side, the other side, like that's all you focus on, and you're blind to your own problems or your own issues, and if it's not this, it has to be this. When that's the way you live your life, that's problematic. You have to be able to think through things objectively. And someone says, Grand Admiral David says, "Come on, Mike, stop feeding the trolls." Horace knows quite well. It's what though, the problem is that Horace is representative of a big group of people who actually think that Kyle should be found guilty. It's representative of what people do when they spit in the face of facts. Is they just jump to emotional and the default systemic racism, systemic prejudices. It's the whole Marxist party line. Right, you've got the power, and then you've got the oppressed and the oppressors, and it's all about power struggle. It's Marxism 101, and it's a poison in our society. So I think it does need to be addressed.
This case is falling apart because of systemic racism.
Oh man! All right, I am so ready for a nap.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
I'm ready for lunch.
I feel dizzy. I feel weak. I feel tired, and I have expended my energy.
For all of those that are still with us, there's 470 watching now, but we have 404 likes on the YouTube live. I'd love to see that number jump up really quick. So if you haven't hit that like button, it really helps us with the
If you
algorithm.
enjoyed us taking the time to do this, please leave the stream, go to Apple Podcasts, and go leave a 5-star rating, and then review it. Actually, write a review. Nothing is more powerful than that combination on Apple to drive us up in the rankings so that we get the show noticed. We want to be the top cop meets culture, law enforcement and culture podcast that exists, and we need your help to do it, Wolfpack. And we gotta have more than just the Mobile Wolfpack. We gotta have
Wolfpack. We're being bullied. We're being bullied. And we're calling upon you right now. Wolfpack a thimble.
This is so you kidnap us. Again.
Oh my gosh. Oh, what a ride today, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. Hopefully you enjoyed it. This is just a couple of cops' perspective, breaking down the law. Again, everything that we're saying comes from our experience as law enforcement officers. So when you're thinking about questions like well, how does this pertain to the law? Why wasn't he arrested on the spot? Or what happened there? What are cops thinking? What's going on? What's our perspective on what we're hearing from a trial? Well, this is it. You got it. Good, bad, or indifferent.
Monday. We may or may not go live. We might do a watch along. We might not. Still in the works. But Tuesday night, if anything, if all chaos breaks out in Kenosha, we'll definitely be on night shift to talk about it. That's Tuesday night live, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Mike the Cop. It's a night shift episode, so it's a little different than this show. It's a little bit more night shifty, just like night shift cops are different. So is that show. So tune in, stay with us next week. We're going to cover all of this. And I say from right now, in my take, I think he's not guilty.
That settles it. That that's a privileged gavel, though. You're just saying that out of your privilege.
Racist. Brown.
All right, guys, guns up, giddy up. We will see you next time.